We are not going to be able to get YouTube to work tonight, so it's just Zoom.
Okay, so are we good to go then?
We are good to go.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, June 9th, 2022 Henrietta Town Board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Here.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Here.
Councilmember Page,
Here.
Councilmember Belanca,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin tonight with a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the preceding meeting from May 25th, 2022. Seconded.
Any discussion?
It was a long set of meeting minutes.
Yeah, that was a long read. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. So first up on the agenda was special use permit application number 2022-024, Rise Cannabis, 556 Jefferson Road, to operate a medical and retail cannabis dispensary. They called yesterday to postpone to the next meeting. We actually told them the next meeting was full. And so they've postponed until July 13th. However, if anybody has come in to offer feedback as part of that public hearing, we will hear that now, or you can come back on the 13th, your choice. Is there anybody who would like to speak with regards to the Rise Cannabis application? Then hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2022-024 to be reopened on July 13th, 2022. Next up, we have special use permit application number 2022-020, new motion, 2165 Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road, to operate a wheelchair accessible van dealership and service facility. Do we have somebody from new motion?
Yes, I'm here on Zoom.
Thank you.
Can you hear me okay, everyone?
We can.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm Doug Westerdahl. I'm the former owner of Monroe Wheelchair, located at 2165 Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road. I sold my company, Monroe, to New Motion in February of 2020. In July of 2021, New Motion acquired Spin Life. Some of you may be familiar with them. Many of us get catalogs in the mail every month, but Spin Life is an online retailer in the durable medical equipment business, serving both the aging in place population and the disabled population to assist them with products to improve their mobility and independence. Spin Life has not in the past had any physical store locations. However, with the success I had serving the community at Monroe, we decided to open a physical Spin Life store at our location on Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road. From this location, we will provide mobility devices such as scooters, power and manual wheelchairs, stair lifts, lift chairs, and ramps for the home. Additionally, we would like to sell wheelchair accessible vehicles. These are typically minivans that have been converted to allow for rear or side entry of a person in a power wheelchair so they can ride as a passenger or drive themselves. This is the purpose of me being at this meeting today, as we are requesting a special use permit at our location to be able to sell and service wheelchair accessible vehicles. Please know this will not be like a car dealership. For one, we will not have the lighting that is typical at a car dealership. The existing lighting in the building parking lot is sufficient. Hours of operation will be 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Secondly, we will only have a small volume of vehicles in the parking lot at any point in time. That would typically be 4 to 6 vans, occasionally 2 to 3 more if we have several waiting for delivery to a customer. The average person driving, was someone asking a question?
Not yet, no.
Okay, sorry. I thought I heard someone. The average person driving by the location would not even know that we are selling vans from the location. For one, there's a berm between Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road and the parking lot. So from the road, you really can't even see the vehicles parked in front of the building. The buying process is not the same as a regular car dealership. People do not browse on the lot and seek a lot of look at a lot of inventory, and these are highly customized vehicles. We will also do light service at the location. This is not typical service of a car dealership. It would include small mechanical repairs, as well as installation of accessories required by the purchaser of the van for safety and operation. Examples are tie downs to secure the wheelchair to the floor and hand controls for driving. We will do some interior and exterior cleaning and touch-ups to make the vehicle ready for delivery. For this, we intend to create a service bay with the existing warehouse. We have submitted permitting for a garage door to be installed, as well as grading of the approach to the building. Our primary goal with this store, including providing access to wheelchair accessible vehicles, is to provide a necessary service to the community to keep people as independent as possible for as long as possible. That's my presentation.
Great, thank you. I will note that at this location, they had previously been customizing people's vehicles as allowed by code. But because the sale of already customized, essentially, if you will, stock wheelchair accessible under New York State law comes under a dealership license. In Henrietta, we have what we often refer to as dealership row. We limit car dealerships to West Henrietta Road from between Jefferson and Lehigh Station Road. However, this past year, we opened that up slightly, and that for what we call specialty dealerships. So they're dealerships that, like this one, it's not your traditional large car lot, full of stuff. It has to be something that represents a specialty vehicle. And as part of that, it's not going to have the large volumes, both, from a car lot standpoint, as well as from a, amount of people coming in through the sales activities through the shop. So we felt it was, as space is tight and difficult to get on dealership row, it just didn't make sense to force these small folks onto that area. And so we passed that law, like I said, sometime last year. So that's what they're coming. It's with a special use permit. So that's what they're coming in under. So just wanted to get that out there. I know they'd previously been before us, but then their application was delayed. So I don't have any additional questions. I don't know if any fellow board members have any questions.
I do.
Are you going to be utilizing the whole building?
No, actually, it's the very front of the building and the very back of the building. Everything else will continue to be normal new motion operations.
And it sounds to me like individuals are going to custom order their vehicle online and then come there to pick it up. Is that
A combination of the two. So some will actually come to our location to look at a vehicle, but the majority of it will probably be online.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the public? Is there anyone online who wishes to ask a question?
No one online.
Thank you. Hearing no further questions or feedback, I am going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2022-020. Can you remind me, Jenny, do we have a standalone resolution for this, or is this one we're just doing,
Just doing.
just forming? Okay. Now I'm going to put forth the motion that we approve special use permit application number 2022-020 for new motion 2165 Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road to operate a wheelchair accessible van dealership and service facility.
Second.
Any further comment? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations, and we thank you for this added service that you're going to provide not just to the Henrietta community, but all of Monroe County. We think it's great that there's more options for wheelchair accessible, especially since presumably those ones that essentially come built that way will carry dealer warranties, which I suspect the instant you modify your vehicle for wheelchair accessibility, it harms any warranty. So I think that's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have special use permit application number 2022-021. Salaam Hot Fresh Deli and Bakery, 3675 West Henrietta Road, to establish and operate a deli and bakery with dine-in and takeout meal service. Please introduce yourself and
Good
tell us
afternoon.
about your application.
My name is Reza Armanesh. I'm the architect for this project. This project is located on Western Rialto Road in the Namista Plaza, Cash and Carry, the new location. It's located on the northeast corner of the complex. It's about a 1,582 square foot net area inside. The intent is to establish a bakery and a deli, a hot fresh deli, both. Based on my discussion with the owner, at the beginning, there is two phases to this project. One is basically bakery and pastry or cookies, stuff like that. They're going to open that. And then later, they're going to prepare food, hot food to sell. Also, we show exterior or outside walk-in cooler and walk-in freezer. That's on phase 2. It's not going to, we are not going to undertake that at this point. We also have a window, pass-through window on the north side of the building, which in case if people don't want to come in and they just want to call in and pick up the orders, that's what they can do. They are going to open at 6 a.m. They're going to have coffee, cake, bread, and then close at 10 p.m. daily, Monday through Sunday.
So you are going to, is there going to be tables inside for dining?
Yes, there are 3 booths, 4 each, so that's 12 people. There's like a counter and some benches or stools rather, another 6 people. So there's going to be about 18 people inside. If they want to sit and eat or have coffee, have some pastry or whatever, they can sit in and be, it's self-service.
Gotcha. And then were you planning on, you said in a future phase, you were going to add outdoor seating?
Down the future, there's a concrete pad to the northeast corner, right next to the area that is being leased. And then that's what the intent is later on. They're going to maybe put umbrella. But I mentioned that to the owner that they have to come back for.
They don't, so we've changed the the process
Oh,
for
okay.
restaurants. So if that's their intent, we could actually approve that now. I will just
Yes.
note that when they go to do it, they will need essentially site plan approval.
Right.
From, it very likely could just be an administrative thing, but you would start at the Department of Engineering and Planning.
Yes.
But in terms of whether it's on your special use permit, we can put that on now. So
Yes.
I'm just going down the list. So you're gonna have dining, you're gonna have outdoor seating. Is it a pickup window or is it are you gonna have drive-through?
No, there's no drive-through. There's no way that the car can come and then turn around. So that's not feasible at all.
Okay,
So basically they have to park in the front parking.
so it's more like curbside.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Are they planning late night operation?
Well, from what I was told, 6 to 10 PM, they close at 10
That's
PM.
fine. Yep. And then I assume they're not going to be having entertainment, live music, stuff like that.
No,
Okay, I'm just running down the list of the things that are in the special use permits. Did I miss any, Don, that you can think of? I don't know if you, okay. So right now I see dine-in and outdoor seating. Right, okay. This is another one where we're gonna create the resolution on the fly, so I just want to get the subcategories.
yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions?
Is there currently a restaurant in that plaza?
No, it used to be from at least the signs and everything based on my discussion with the building owner. There used to be a fish, seafood rather,
Mhm.
place that they didn't cook anything, but maybe sushi, I don't know exactly. But that's what it used to be, but they moved out.
Okay.
So it's
gotcha.
vacant, at present time is vacant.
And that's the space that you'll be using, the space that used to be the fish
Yes, ma'am.
place? Okay.
It's about 1,582 square foot. It's not that large, but that's the net area.
And is there an internal connection with the grocery, the Namaste?
No,
No. okay.
they have a 1 hour separation between Nemesta and this space. Also, to the south of it, there is a insurance office. So there's also a 1 hour fire separation between this tenant and next tenant.
Okay. And is it the same, just out of curiosity, is this the same owner for Namaste? as
No,
this
it's
new-
a separate owner.
Separate entity? Okay.
Yes, separate owner. They're leasing the space from Nemesta.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You mentioned a walk-in cooler or freezer. I'm assuming, is that going to be inside?
I'm sorry.
You mentioned a walk-in cooler, didn't you? A freezer?
Yes, for the exterior, but right now, when they want to operate, anytime that you need to operate any food for public, you have to have a freezer and a refrigerator inside. Health Department, Monroe County Health Department will require that. So
I
they
know-
will have that inside.
Inside.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
but not a walk-in cooler, just basically a freezer, standing up freezer and a standing up cooler.
Understand.
So again, if you go to add an exterior walk-in cooler, that will have to be approved by site plan and both Department of Engineering and Planning and the Department of Building and Fire Prevention.
Yes,
that-
sir. We did that for Namist, actually. I did the drawing for the exterior,
That's what-
large freezer and cooler they had to go through the same motion that you're discussing.
Mr. Supervisor, I just wanted to quickly run through the subtypes with
Sure.
you, with all of us, actually, to make sure we've got them all. So sit down meal service,
Yep,
yes.
Yes.
Takeout meal service,
Yes.
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 yeah. No drive-through, right?
No,
Outdoor seating,
Yes,
Yes.
in
Okay.
future, not at present.
but we're gonna just do
Put
it.
it
Might
on
as
there.
well just do it now.
bands, DJs, or other similar loud
No,
entertainment,
sir.
okay? And then alcohol to be served.
No alcohol.
Okay, that's all of them.
Okay. Forgot about.
Soft drinks,
No, that's fine. It's just, alcohol be served. We have to do the check as far as whether it's permitted and it gets involved with the liquor authority, but that's all. Okay, so it's gonna be sit down, or dine in, take out and outdoor seating. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I was gonna ask about alcohol, but Don did it, so we're good.
We're good.
Joe, got anything that hasn't already been asked?
Since it's going to be on the same site as the Namaste, do you know, do they serve alcohol?
Namasta, I don't believe they serve alcohol. To best of my knowledge, they don't.
Thank you.
Sure.
There was some talk that they would come back at some future date, but I don't remember that that's happened yet. They were considering it, whether they've decided to or not, I don't know. Any questions from the public? Any questions or comments online?
I just want to throw out Namaste's special use permit that was approved was to operate a restaurant serving alcohol.
Okay, that's what I thought. I don't think they've gotten their actual license yet, but I did think that they were considering it.
Right. Presently, there is none in there. I
Right.
shop in there and I haven't, I mean, I don't drink myself, but I haven't
Right.
seen it.
That's what I was saying. I think it's a future phase.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hearing no further comments, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2022-021.
Thank you.
I am going to put forth a motion that we approve special use permit application number 2022-021, Salaam Hot Fresh Deli and Bakery, 3675 West Henrietta Road, to establish and operate a deli and bakery with dine-in and takeout meal service. Said special use permit would include dine-in and / sit down, takeout, and outdoor seating.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations, and we look forward to them opening. Next up, we have special use permit application number 2022-022, Genesee Valley Henrietta Moose Lodge number 2290, 5375 West Henrietta Road, to hold annual fundraising events, including Peacemakers and Sportsman Raffle between July and September 2022, with music, raffles, and the sale of food, beer, and wine. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the events.
My name is Bob Laux, the administrator for the Moose Family Center. Moose is a international organization in Canada, United States, and Great Britain, over 2,000 lodges. And in the last year of July, we approved to merge the women and the men all into one. So now we're called the Moose, not the Loyal or Moose, just the Moose. This event that we're asking for is something that 22nd annual for the sportsman raffle that we have, and that funds that we raise from that and go to the Holy Childhood here in Henrietta. The Peacemakers, those are the police officers and sheriffs and so forth of Monroe County motorcycle group that have events to raise funds for charity. And this is their third annual one that they're having. And we're sponsoring that in our pavilion as well. It's open to the public for both. We serve beer and wine plus food, music, raffles, and so forth during the two events.
Great. And I know you guys are also doing stuff now with the Henrietta Chamber of Commerce and going to be
Yes.
hosting some of those events. Though none of those particular events require a permit, but I think it's great that we're starting to see organizations within the town working with each other and supporting each other. So I think that's great.
That's great. It's just the two events that you have, the one in July and one in September?
That's correct. We were going to have Ruby Shoes in June, but we have to postpone that till next year because their availability.
If something does come up, you can reach out to the town clerks as long as it falls within the date range. Other questions?
In all the years that they've run this, we've never had a complaint.
Thank you.
Sometimes sound comes up as an issue, but it's never been never had a complaint.
No, it's a good location in that regard.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a nice use of a historic building, one of the older buildings in town.
Right. Trying to keep it up, looking nice.
Yep.
Just painted the flagpole.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Comments? Any questions or comments from the public? Anything online? Hearing no further comment, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2022-022. Someone else want to make the resolution, so I'm not hogging them all?
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I'd like to make a motion to approve application number 2022-022, Genesee Valley Henrietta Moose Lodge number 2290 located at 5375 West Henrietta Road to hold annual fundraising events, including the Peacemakers and Sportsman raffle between July and September 2022, with music, raffles, and the sale of food, beer, and wine in a commercial B1 zone district.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations. Look forward to the events.
Yeah, thank you.
I was
for all
at
that you
your,
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. I was at your last one briefly, the Vietnam veterans, the bicycle. I forgot what the group is called. I'm horrible with names. What was it? Yes. Thank you. Next up, we have special use permit application number 2022-023, Mercedes-Benz of Rochester, West Her Automotive, 1233 Lehigh Station Road to operate a Sprinter van service facility. We have a representative. Coming
Yeah,
up.
hi, good evening. This is Jim Malka, Director of Facilities with West Her.
Paul Galad from Form 2 Architecture.
Could you make sure you're in front of the
Sorry.
microphone? Thanks.
Paul Galad from Form 2 Architecture, the project architect.
Great. Could you give us a little overview of the project?
Yeah, so as we continue to be pinched for space at our Mercedes and BMW dealerships, we're constantly looking at ways that we can kind of offload some of that traffic. So we've been approved through Mercedes to provide a service only Sprinter location. We've signed into a lease with Mr. Hosmer at 1233 Lehigh Station Road for us to perform service at that location. There will not be any customer interface at that location. It is strictly a service location for us. Anybody looking for service would still come to our Mercedes dealership on West Henrietta, go through the typical check-in process, and then we would transport the vehicle over to this location, perform the service, return it back to the Mercedes, and then the customers would pick it up from there. Like I said, we've worked with Mercedes. We had a previous application where they didn't like the location. This one they were very fond of. So we'd like to utilize this. As I said, we've entered into the lease with Mr. Hosmer that's been executed. Obviously, we have to go through the special use application as well as the permit application for this, but we'd love to get this up and operational as soon as possible.
Question on that. So no sales activity, since there's no customer, I assume that also means no sales activity taking place here?
Correct. It's service only, and again, yes, no customers.
And then in the proposed plan, you have a number of vehicles or parking spaces. Are those for vehicles being serviced? Is it for storage of other West Her vehicles? What's intended for all those spaces?
It'd be employee and service vehicles only. No storage of vehicles would be here.
Right.
Will there be any loading or unloading of vehicles there? The main issue being on the road.
No, there would be no intent for any of all the customer interaction would happen at our Mercedes location. So even like a tow truck or we certainly would not be taking delivery of new cars there. either.
Is there any lighting in the parking lot proposed?
The existing lighting to remain.
Okay, thank you.
How many employees are you going to have working there?
So initially we'll have around 6 employees, but we would see that, easily could, if with the volume of this, could double to, 12.
Anyone else? Any questions from the public? Okay, could you step aside so we have someone who wants to come up? Oh, come on up to the microphone, please.
I just like,
You can pull it down to you. There you go.
I just like qualification as to where it is.
So this is at the Hosmer facilities. They have, it's on Lehigh Station Road. It's east of the railroad tracks. Hosmer's is kind of the easternmost of that. And then in between Hosmer and the railroad tracks, there's call it an office or an industrial park. So it's across from Matthews and Fields.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Does that help you?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Kevin Yost,
Kevin, you can lift it
1474
back
Meadow
up.
Road.
Go ahead and lift it up. There you go.
Further clarification, it's the facility immediately east of High Point Mills that used to be Best Ways Disposal back in the day. Just for further clarification.
Thank you.
Can we get a name for the first speaker?
Lois. Any other questions, comments? Anything online? Then hearing none, I am going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2022-023, Mercedes-Benz of Rochester, Wester Automotive. Somebody wish to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve special use permit number 2022-023, Mercedes-Benz of Rochester, Wester Automotive to operate a Sprinter van service facility with no sales at 1233 Lehigh Station Road.
I would like to also note that there will be no storage of
Vehicles.
of other sale vehicles there.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations and
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
my former business used the Sprinters a lot, so.
Sir, before you leave, do you know what the anticipated finish date is for the storage lot that used to be the motel on West Henrietta Road? It's gone.
No, I'm still here.
Okay.
What was the question?
Can you tell us the anticipated completion date of the storage lot where the old motel used to be on West Henrietta Road?
So we are in process. I believe they just had their pre-con meeting this week, and I anticipate the construction actually starting tomorrow. I would imagine, probably a 2 to 3 month time period for at least the site location. We don't have an end dealership in there yet that's been approved by any brand, but we do have we did get the special use permit to use it for storage until that time, or at least for a 2-year time period. But I would say probably in the next 3 months, you would see that wrapping up.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
And if you recall, that was predicated on them taking the old hotel.
Oh, I
down.
recall all of it. I just had people asking me when they expected to be.
No,
done.
I get it.
That's all.
Yeah, a little longer process than we would like as well, but we're getting there. It's nice to see the hotel down and
Yep,
I would agree,
that's right. Cleaned up. a lot.
especially it was a fire trap.
Mhm.
Yes.
Among other things.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Next up, we have special use permit application numbers 2022-008 and 011 for Southridge Landing, East Henrietta Road, to apply split zoning to the parcel to utilize the commercial B2 zoning guidelines and to construct an apartment building as revised. So the first 11 is for the split zoning and 8 is for the apartment building.
Thank you. Was this the version 4? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Since if you're going to be showing what we've got here, do you want to point that towards the audience?
Hello, members of the board. My name is Joshua Saxton. I'm a civil engineer at Pasro Associates. With me today is Brian Donato from Dakota Partners. And we are here to present the updated site plan for the Southridge Landing residential development. As you see on the first page in your packet, as well as what's shown right now on the board, this was the original plan that we presented a couple months ago, not only at a neighborhood meeting, but also at the town board. There was a bunch of concerns or changes that were requested not only of the board, but of the public. Just a couple of those that were the main points from those meetings was the access road, which was along Calkins Road and would kind of come in that sliver of the southern portion of the parcel and then connect to the site. So there was, a number of comments on that, which included safety for, vehicle traffic leaving, being a busy road as it is, maybe causing accidents, the close proximity of the parking to the existing daycare, safety of the children in that area, and then also the close proximity to the single-family residents to the east, and how that would, impede their privacy on that site. In addition to that, the building orientation, there were some requested changes for that. The northern part of the building was facing some residents, and so there was also a concern of privacy in that case for maybe someone looking out into someone's backyard. So we took a lot of those changes and redesigned the site, most notably moving the entrance along the existing curb cut that connects to the CVS and a drive-through ATM. This light or this curb cut is currently signalized, so traffic will be controlled in and out. It's not going to cause any traffic concerns for the site. And so there's no disturbance along, to Calkins Road at all anymore. Pretty much where that old access road used to be, there's nothing there anymore. Another concern that was also stated and that I previously stated was the close proximity to the daycare. We've moved that at least 50 feet for the parking away from the daycare to, provide far enough distance so that there's no concern for the children that may be in the backyard playing at the daycare. And we also reoriented the building so that the balconies, there's going to be no balconies that are directly facing a single family resident to provide even more privacy for the single family residents around the area. In addition to that, we are showing some privacy screening along the eastern side of the site disturbance limits, and that is mainly for, as previously stated in other meetings, to avoid any light draw that may come from parked cars or cars driving through from passing through the site and into a adjacent resident and causing a distraction. So we presented this drawing at the workshop on Monday.
Hold on, before you get
Yep.
there, I will also note that you moved the dumpster from the eastern side of the parking lot to the western side of the parking lot, so that if there was any noise, that was at the request of the town board, if there was any noise from people using the dumpster, it would be as far away from the residences as possible.
Yes. Yeah, so we, as I just said, we were at the workshop on Monday, kind of presenting this plan, see if the town had any input. And it mainly came down to fire access concerns. There was some concerns from the fire marshal for site access, turn radiuses, things of that nature. Even though we are providing full fire lane widths around the building, as well as a fire truck turnaround at the end of the site, we decided to expand that a little bit. So it's not a drastic change of, what was just presented. But as of note, at the entrance of the site, we actually expanded the road to 30 feet. That was one of the concerns of the fire marshal, was that when a ladder truck comes and distributes its levelers, that maybe it will block additional vehicles from being able to enter the site. So we expanded that out as much as possible. We're pretty much abutting the 100-foot buffer. So we didn't want to encroach on that. So we didn't want to make the road any wider than it is now. And mainly it was just some pavement expansion for truck turning movements on the southern side of the building. You can see a kind of a dashed pavement hatch to the west of the T turnaround at the very end of the parking lot. That is mainly for staging. And if, there's a larger vehicle that can't use the presented turnaround, that it can safely turn around. And then also an expanded pavement area east of that, just for vehicle circulation, so that, if there's a bunch of fire trucks around, fighting a fire, that there's ample room that vehicles can get out and move around the site and leave and not cause a jam. So that's essentially all that's changed. And, since the start of the project, presenting it here is to where we are now. So we are happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Well, one thing I'll note, the very first parking lot, it's small enough print that I can't tell. Did that change from 26 to 24? Or is that still 26?
In the first parking lot, yeah, it's 26.
Okay.
So it's essentially 26, starting where the building is, to be a fire access lane around the whole building.
Yeah, I should have done this. Okay. It was such fine print, it looked like a 24 at first. Okay, never mind. So at first blush, this looks like, what we talked about. Go ahead, Rick.
You also turned the building so that the windows are not directly facing the residents, that they were concerned about visual intrusion.
Yep.
Yeah,
There's
so
no
that-
visual intrusion with the way the building is settled now, right?
Yes, so essentially the building kind of rotated to avoid those balconies and windows from going into single-family residence. Now they're pretty much abutting either the CVS or the daycare or the back of the parking lot of the site.
And I know we brought this up at a previous hearing, but might as well repeat it tonight. What I'll call the end caps of the Ls, those are where the staircases are located, and there's not apartments and windows there.
Yeah.
Right. So this looks like it addresses all the concerns we've raised previously. I don't see any additional questions. We will not be deciding on this tonight because, as you know, we have to pass it by the fire marshal and or the fire district. So any other questions from the board before I open it up to the public?
I just want to say I appreciate all the input that you took under consideration and the work that you put into applying all of that input. I think it looks like a huge improvement.
Okay, questions from the public? Come on up.
My name is Cindy Wallace and I live on Hartwood Drive. I'm just trying to visualize the entrance and the exit. You've got the light where I know I exit from CVS. And then you've also got the the bank.
The ATM.
Bank.
Mhm.
Yeah. Exactly where are you in relationship to the bank? The exit.
So yeah, it's not really showing in here, but as it comes in, it actually, this is what it looks like now.
Do you need a microphone?
I think that would.
Can you hear him, Jen?
No, not really.
So while he's getting that going, I can answer that some. Are you familiar with the light?
Yes.
And you come in and it makes a hard right to the ATM and the CVS?
Yes.
To the left, it's a field. They're gonna come in, so basically you'll make a hard right to go to the bank or CVS, or you'll make a hard left to go to the apartment
Apartments.
complex. Does that
Okay,
make
so
sense?
they're all going to share that one light.
All gonna share that one entrance that is signalized, yes.
Okay. All right.
There's
So,
not gonna be an additional curb cut. That's one of the things we were trying to avoid. and
Right.
They did
Okay.
accommodate.
all right.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think of the difficulty of taking a left-hand turn out.
It's no more, because again, it's gonna have a light, so coming out, it'll be no more difficult than the people coming out of CVS or the bank.
Okay, but you've got three places feeding in there, don't you? CVS, the bank, and then the apartment.
Correct.
All right, so how many lanes will you have there going into into the apartment?
I believe it's just a single lane going in now. And, obviously the right turn here, and obviously anyone taking a left. I believe it's a double left turn lane here or left turn lane here. So it's already, the intersection is kind of already designed for, people entering this intersection.
Okay,
And, as the plans develop, we will be doing, a traffic study to analyze, queuing distances, how the lights can operate to make sure that it's, operating efficiently.
okay. Also, my question is, what is the distance between here and,
So it's about 94 feet.
oh, 90, okay.
Yeah, this corner of the parking is the only thing that's encroaching a little bit in the 100-foot buffer.
Okay.
But everything else is within that buffer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we asked them to push that parking lot out a bit to provide more capability for emergency vehicle bypass. So we didn't want them closing that down to be within the 100-foot set, within 100-foot setback. So I'll note that that exit today has a dedicated right turn lane and a left/straight turn. Based on the aerial imagery, it looks like you can fit easily 3 vehicles in that portion. If there were more than 3 vehicles coming out, it would be like you see with some of the entrances at the mall. People typically what will probably happen is they'll pull in and block the traffic. But in theory, what they should do is stop at the T and turn. But again, they would only be blocking traffic into the opposing thing. Again, we see that around the mall, whether it's in the mall itself or in the J. Scuddy Plaza across the street. We have a number of these where there is 3 or 4 car lanes or an exit that can fit 3 or 4 cars stacked, and then any further stacking happens in the roads coming into it. So that's not an uncommon layout. So sure, coming up. And by the way, did you introduce yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still Cindy Wallace.
No, that's fine. You haven't changed?
This is a 2-part approval, is it not? For other buildings or?
No,
shops
so
or
originally
something?
they were talking about doing it under the mixed use overlay. That there's a mixed use overlay district in this area. If they did that, they would also have to have a commercial, they would have to have some civic, which would have included walkways. The residents were very much against those paths because they brought them near their people near their houses. So we let them know of something we had put in place that it's called split zoning. So this parcel has about 3 or 4 different zones in it. The majority is commercial B2. Commercial B2 actually allows for apartment complexes, but because some of it will be on commercial B2, some of it will be on, I forgot what the other zones were. They have to do what's called split zoning. So the first thing is they're going to propose that the entire parcel be used as, be considered commercial B2. We did that through a special use permit because we actually need it to be declared. Now they can't come in and say, well, I want to put commercial on here because it's not, I mean, it's basically going to be zoned as a single parcel for commercial B2. If they put an apartment complex, that's all that can be on there. Okay. If they later wanted to remove the apartment and go, it would still be commercial B2. They could remove the apartment and put commercial development there, but
I'll be dead by then.
Me too.
yep, coming up. Yeah, if you're between on the other side of me from this poster board, you definitely stand up and raise your hand.
David Frank, I missed how many total parking spots, please?
There's 93 spots currently shown on the plans.
There's only one access,
Yes.
which we're kind of planning to be blocked part of the time. It sounds like
I'm not sure what you mean by plan to be blocked part of the time.
by the amount of traffic, we're just assuming that there'll be numerous times when it's
Well, I don't know if
a
I would
little-
agree with that statement,
little
but
overdone.
there is a
Okay.
potential that once in a blue moon, it will be part. Again, when you look at the amount of traffic, it's far more than 93 spaces that come out of the mall or J. Scuddy Plaza North. And it's not, it's not a problem. So
that's not what I do or understand.
I
So,
understand.
will there be another public meeting after the fire marshal reviews this?
This will most likely be the last, so that depends. If the fire marshal requires a change,
Mhm.
then yes, we would reopen the public hearing. But my plan initially is to close the public hearing tonight.
Supervisor, if I can, it looks like the fire marshal responded via email while we were here in the meeting.
Okay,
Do you want me to read it?
sure.
Okay. Says, I am still standing by conviction that if this parcel is going to be developed in the manner proposed, that a complete and second access road shall be required. The developer has not presented us with this option. One access road, no matter what width, is unacceptable. 2 access roads shall be required. My suggestions are, if this parcel is not conducive for a second access road due to parcel size constraints, to then pursue a different parcel in town where 2 access roads is conducive.
Thank you for that. A question about that, is that kind of, does the town have to follow that recommendation, or can they override that?
Honestly, don't know that answer. It's never come up. Put it this way, we never have overridden it in the past. Don?
Yeah, I mean, the fire marshal is part of the town,
Right.
so it's something the board gets to make the decision, and it's certainly going to take that into account and discern what it can from that email.
So what we have been trying to do is get CVS to approve an emergency access out through their exit. It would be gated. It would not be active. People wouldn't be coming and going from it, but that would provide a second exit. So we actually hadn't had the chance to actually discuss it with him. He's just seen it on paper. So I will call that response preliminary.
Yeah.
Because again, he wasn't here at the last workshop for that discussion about that we provided the additional turns and the bypass, and see what he has to say. So, but obviously if he sticks by that, then we're going to have to figure out, is there a way to get a second access out there? Again, the thing that makes the most sense to me is to go out through, even if we're a single lane, out through CVS, but that requires CVS signing off on it. right now, they're just kind of, because it's national, they're just like, we don't want to deal with it. I have not contacted them yet. The developer has, and they've kind of brushed the developer aside. I will also note that CVS, if they want to make changes, they're going to be in front of the same town board. So it just seems to me to make sense. Now, I also will point out, as I said at the workshop, some of this is of the landowner's own doing. I don't know if it's this current one or a previous landowner, because when they subdivided these out, they should have made that a joint entrance. In fact, I would have preferred that the parking lot for the daycare had come off of that joint entrance instead of its own curb cut. But that was long before I was ever in office. So we'll see what happens. I'm not a fan of bringing the entrance out through that sliver, because that will destroy the buffer to the residents to the east, as I stated before. Even gated, I'm not a fan of that.
Thank you.
So we'll have to see if there's any way that they can get the entrance out through CVS, but if not, then the fire marshal says no. That's, like I said, we've never overridden the fire marshal in the past. I'll just put it that way. Whether we have the legal authority to or not, that plays a big part in it. So with that said, again, he just looked at the plans. He wasn't part of the discussion. So it's unfair to the applicant to make that a final ruling today, because they should at least be able to have that discussion with him.
You answered the question well the first time, and I understood the answer before the fire marshal spoke via email. So forgive me if it's redundant. Will there be another public meeting?
So again, if the fire marshal changes his mind and adopts this plan, there will not be another public hearing. If the fire marshal requires a change, once that change is ready, so either way, I'm going to be closing the public hearing tonight. If the fire marshal requires a change, once that change is in, because that might take some time if they have to get approval from CVS, for instance. I don't know if there's any possible way for them to go up behind the what are they called? The ATM. If there's a way to come up behind the ATM, that's another, in theory, possible. I just don't know if the terrain would allow that. And again, they'd have to get permission from the ATM folks, but because those are all unknowns, it doesn't make sense to hold the hearing open. Again, if the fire marshal stands pat and requires that they have a second entrance, then yes, once the plans come in with that second entrance, we would reopen the public hearing.
Thank you for that clarification. Last question, I believe. What does the board see as a benefit to the town of this proposal?
I just want to jump in on that before you answer that question. The board's job isn't to figure out whether there's a benefit to the town in a land use proposal. The board's job is to determine whether it complies with the zoning code and whether it's eligible for approval.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Young. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, coming up. Again, introduce yourself.
My name is Lois. I have a question just based on that. So if you guys aren't responsible for the welfare of the town, who is?
I'm not sure.
Okay, repeat what you said, because I'll do it again, sorry.
The question was, what benefits does this development offer to the town?
Yes, so
It's different than how it affects the welfare of the town. Those are two different questions. The whole point of the land use process is to ensure that it doesn't negatively affect the welfare of the town.
Which is again, why we've required all these changes to be made, why we've said they can't come out here in this entrance where it would be dangerous from a traffic location, where it would have a significant negative impact on the neighbors because of the clearing of that buffer.
Mhm.
All that was for the welfare of the town. His question was, what is the benefit of additional apartments?
But then who?
What's the benefit of your house being there? Is there any benefit? other than you get to live there.
I get to live there. Well,
Right,
no,
exactly.
and it makes it a residential area, which could be beneficial for a given area.
Right.
So I mean, there are beneficial
Sure. And there are
things to the
also,
community.
and there are also benefits for people who can't afford houses and want to live in apartments. And this is a zone where apartments are allowed.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that. I was just
Yep.
questioning the other one. I do have some questions about this though. First of all, is this the property where the barn was?
No, the barn is further to the north.
Further north, so I'm still not getting it.
That's, we kind of,
Okay, so
yeah,
this over here though, is this for,
that's where the light is.
okay,
Yeah.
so this here is that.
Yeah, the beers are the way, yep, yep. So it's on this side.
We can't hear
Directly
Lois.
across from Beers of the World. That is
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, but this, so the barn is just further north, not much, right?
No, I think it's that. So if you look there, just off the edge, there's a parcel.
This one,
Again, it's hard for me to read.
I believe.
But that parcel just to the north of it is this, that's the grassy area or the tree wooded area. And then from there is the barn. I think it's the same parcel, but there could be two parcels there. I'm not positive.
I'm sorry, can Lois go back to a mic?
I'm wondering if the land parcel down between where we're building, he's building his apartments to the barn, is that all vacant?
Again, a portion of that right now is wooded and you can see those woods on the drawing. And then there are additional woods on the parcel that has the barn.
So will that remain a wooded area? There's no
In
chance of
theirs, it would
development?
remain, you can see there's roughly 100 feet of wooded area that would remain. And the wooded area that is where the driveway isn't coming would also remain according to their drawing. But there would be a portion of, if you know, you go on to like Google Maps, you can easily just picture if you extend that driveway along the path, you can see that there'll be trees that will be cleared along the path of that road. But again, that buffered space, which today is treed, will stay treed. No, that they own that property. But what happened is in 2019, we passed a update to the comprehensive land use plan, which introduced the concept of buffers. So just to give you a little backstory, long before I was ever considering getting involved in politics and in town government, I lived on the corner of Bailey and John Street. And mine was the original farmhouse for that area that was rezoned in industrial. The developer built the office building as close as he possibly could to my house based off of setbacks. And all I can suspect is it was to destroy the value of my house so he could acquire it. I don't know what other reason there would be for that. But fortunately, because I lived on a corner, he was limited from a setback standpoint. My neighbor to the north, now there was some separation, but they weren't so lucky. They weren't on a corner and they built the parking lot right up to the fence line. And so they essentially had a FedEx terminal right in their backyard. And it just was horrible for those residents. I never forgot that. So when I was in office and we were putting together the comprehensive land use plan, we introduced this concept of buffers. And the idea is if the use is changing, so in this case, you have residents and here it's commercial or in this case, multifamily, it requires a certain amount of buffer in which there can be nothing in there to protect exactly what you're talking about. So if they build this, no, they cannot touch that 100-foot buffer. That has to stay empty. That has to stay, you know, undeveloped. So they would keep the trees there. In fact, if there's any gaps, we would expect from the planning board would ask them to fill those gaps in. So that, again, it's not town land, but it is essentially portioned off that it cannot be developed. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I do have a couple more. Okay, I was wondering what kind of pricing are you doing in that space? So like the rent, what kind of renting are you doing?
I don't know if Brian.
Will it be? I
Brian,
mean-
there is a mic right in front of you if you want to just pull that towards you.
Sure. Is it on?
Yep.
It's the final rents aren't determined yet because we have to get funding, but it'll be primarily households earning between 50 and 80% of area median income. So I think area median income here is $76,000 in Monroe County. So you imagine 80% of that.
80%. Okay, so no section 8.
No, there's no direct subsidy.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
My name is Scott Williams. I just wanted, if you could read the email from the fire marshal one more time.
He says, I'm still standing by conviction that if this parcel is going to be developed in the manner proposed, that a complete and second access road shall be required. The developer has not presented us with this option. One access road, no matter what width, is unacceptable. 2 access roads shall be required. My suggestions are, if this parcel is not conducive for a second access road due to parcel size constraints, then pursue a different parcel in town where 2 access roads is conducive.
Since the fire marshal is relatively denying this proposal, wouldn't we need another public hearing to see a new proposal?
Again, the fire marshal just did this off of the submitted plans, hasn't had a chance to talk to the applicant. The applicant hasn't had a chance to essentially talk to the fire marshal and explain the changes that were made he was not at the workshop on Monday. He was not present. So he did not hear the discussion. He did not hear. So I have a hard time basically taking it without having the applicants have a chance to explain their case. That doesn't mean he's going to change his mind. But again, if he says, yes, this plan is okay, and I'm going to approve this plan and there's no change to the plan, I guess my question is, what does it matter? Well, if the plan hasn't changed, what additional input are you going to have that you aren't going to be able to provide today?
Well, I would like to see the 2 access roads that the fire marshal's requiring.
Well, I understand that. So that would mean that this plan would change, in which case we would reopen the public hearing. I've stated that.
Yeah.
So if the plan changes, we would reopen the public
I just
hearing.
wanted clarity on that.
Yeah,
So
that's
thank
it.
you.
Coming up. Oh, please wait.
I'm Joanne, and I just want to know, how are the construction vehicles going to get back there to start this project?
They would be coming down that same road.
Okay, they're not going to go behind. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
No, we're not allowing, like I said, nothing through that buffer.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Typically, that actually also helps them because the construction vehicles will essentially compress that road as they go over it. And that way it provides actually a better base for when
Yeah,
they go to
because it's on a
pave
hill.
it. Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
It's me again.
Well, you gotta say
Cindy
your-
Wallace.
I know, but she still has to state because our town clerks can't see. So
I know at the last meeting, there was an issue about the drainage, and I was wondering with flipping the building, what you've changed on that.
As far as the drainage goes, it's still going to be utilizing the existing storm pond while expanding it out. Reorienting the site hasn't really changed the stormwater design that much. Eventually, essentially all of the developed area will be going through a pond, and that pond has a discharge pipe that goes to the east. So there hasn't been any drastic changes to that. It's just still going to the same
I'll
pond.
address one of the things we had asked, and they did put that in there in terms of, so when they're going to do the grading, you see that fence, that has to be bermed a bit or a swell before it, so that any runoff of the parking lot flows to the north into the pond.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it's basically the existing pond that's there. It's just going to be expanded in the same area,
And
westward. not eastward towards residential.
And the
properties.
existing pond that on there was not maintained and allowed to be filled in, which is, this one will not be allowed to be filled in. This one, they will have to maintain.
Okay, all right.
Anybody else? Again, if you're behind, if you've got a hand raised behind the sign, stand up because I can't see it. Anybody online? Oh, wait, so we got someone.
Sam DeSalvo, 876 Middle Road. And a few weeks ago, we were here for another item that's on the agenda tonight, the Masonic Care Community. And Rick, when they mentioned that there was going to be one entrance into that facility, you says you were very adamant about it not having to have two entrances or two exits. You said, let there be an accident on that road and there's a fire, there's going to be a big problem. So I'm just wondering what makes this so different?
Well, what makes it different is we just got the email after the meeting started.
Right.
We weren't aware of it before we started the public hearing.
But I'll also say the other thing that makes this different is just the number of units. That other development is larger.
How many units altogether here?
At 62 units right now.
63,
Right.
95 parking places, that's enough, right?
Yeah, so that's one of the difference, you know, again, under code. So just to be clear, under New York State code, they are not required to have the second entrance. However, fire marshals, there is some discretion allowed as to whether they do or don't require a second entrance.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
but the other thing I will also note, the other thing why in fact, I was just talking with the Monroe County DOT today and they were out looking at the intersection. There are other issue there that happens that isn't the case as much here. If there's only a single entrance at the Masonic Care, I mean, no matter what, there's going to be two. Would be active, one would be gated. Then what that does is that means any traffic. So if there's only one active, it would be the one on Middle Road, because that's where we expect most of the traffic to go, right? But if anybody wants to go eastbound on Erie Station Road, they now have to go up to the intersection and turn left. And as you know, that is the people, they call it, I refer to them, they think of them as stoptionals, right? They're not stop signs, they're stoptional signs. So that creates an issue. So that's why we're pushing back more than the fire standpoint, because again, a gated exit handles the fire case. We want to minimize the amount of traffic that goes through that intersection. Whereas from a traffic integrity standpoint, both solutions work. We think having the second entrance active is optimal. That is not the case here. Now, if they could somehow get out to CVS, maybe that's optimal, but even that CVS entrance out onto Calkins Road is not the best entrance because of people coming flying down that hill. So to me, an entrance to Calkins Road actually makes this less safe, unlike the other scenario, because that other entrance is far enough from the intersection, has good sight lines. That's not the case here. So that's the primary difference.
CVS, we frequent that store occasionally, and when I leave that, I always take Calkins Road. It's much easier. There's no traffic from CVS going that way there, and there's never really that many cars in CVS. And the Calkins Road, you got to worry about people coming up.
Exactly. Yep.
So
I agree with you.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask anybody online. Anybody else in the room? So again, my plan is to close the public hearing. If the plan at all changes, we will re-advertise, we'll reopen the hearing and re-advertise for that. So we are not making a decision tonight. Obviously, we need to have a chance for them to talk to the fire marshal. If the fire marshal stands pat, then they're going to have to figure out another option, whether that means selecting another site or that means, again, finding a means to get a second emergency exit out. The second exit would just be gated. I guess that's it. Okay, so hearing no further comments, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit applications numbers 2022-008 and 011 for Southridge Landing to be reopened if the plans changed. And again, they will be re-advertised if reopened. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there a question of whether they could have copies? Because my copy is also available if someone wants it. I don't tend to keep, yep. I prefer soft copies.
I think there's another.
They're all online. They're not online currently, they will be.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, and finally, we have special use permit application numbers 2022-015 and 018 Masonic Care Community, Erie Station Road, to construct a senior living facility offering recreational amenities. That's application 15, and to have a building height of 53 feet. That's application 18. Please introduce yourself and give an introduction to your project.
Hello and good evening. My name is Ed Martin. I'm an engineer with DDS representing the application tonight. Also in attendance in the event that you have a question best answered by the applicant is Mr. Mike Morris, who is a trustee. The board will recall we last presented May 11th to you, at which time there were a few items for us to look into and to provide for you, one of which was the added sidewalk from the intersection to our main entrance off of Middle Road. And the updated site plan that we've submitted does show that sidewalk, and that will be reflected on the pending site plan application to your planning board. Secondly, there were questions about view sheds from adjoining properties, and those have been submitted, and I think digitally they probably show.
We do have them
best.
up here. We'll be showing them shortly.
Yeah. And then lastly, there was a lot of discussion about actual elevations of peak constructed materials in particular buildings. And I have those numbers if you care to get into that at any particular point. But at this point, I'd be happy to answer questions that you have.
I will also point out the other thing we had talked about was when you're doing your grading around the pond, to give us a flat spot for that future potential access road, should that come about.
Yep.
Hold on one second. Okay, why don't we do this? Jenny, if you can get the view sheds up there so we can just walk through the various view sheds. Okay, so there we go. So this is just an aerial view in general. I'm not going to be able to read where from here, I'm not going to be able to read which properties they're from, but if you, Jenny, if you could just call them out, I think there's a legend in the upper left corner. Or
This is from near the,
yeah,
this is from the north end.
the
of the
applicant can
freeway.
call it out, I guess, because he's closer. Go.
They are, yep.
So this one's showing the cross section with the intersection to the, so basically south is to the right and north is to the left.
Correct.
Erie Station Road dotted line, is that the road surface or is that?
I can't hear who's talking.
Yeah,
You need to come.
it's coming up. Introduce yourself and ask your question.
Sam DeSalvo again. Is the dotted line?
I think I know the question. The dotted line represents the center line intersection elevation, which is right around 650-ish, 649, 650.
Yeah, I think it's 648 if I remember
Okay.
correctly. But that's the elevation of the pavement at the center of the intersection.
Right.
And what is the elevation of the steeple?
I
can give you that.
Yep.
The absolute top spire elevation is 643.0.
So that's changed from the last meeting.
No. The 640 is, if you remember, I said 640 was all the buildings except for the steeple. The steeple was gonna exceed 640, but it's still below the height of the,
He just mentioned that the steeple height is 640.
the steeple height is not the height.
Yeah.
643 is the elevation of the top of the steeple. That's if you take the ground elevation and add the height to it. The elevation of the intersection is 648. So therefore it is still below the elevation of the intersection. The cap in the resolution, we put a cap of 640 for all other buildings. The only thing we allowed to exceed the 640 elevation is the steeple. And if you look at all the other buildings, that cupola that's on the community apartments building, those are all below 640.
That cupola is at 633.5.
Yeah, yeah. So all the other ridge lines and cupolas and high points on the building, they're all below 640 except for the steeple. Can you go on to you'll start to see some as we go through these views. Could you go to the next one? Okay, so this just shows which addresses. So, I guess I can read it.
This is, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so at 1053, one of the things you'll see, there's a view 1 and a view 2. View 1, correct me where I stray, view 1 represents the current vegetation that's there, and view 2 is when the new vegetation is grown in. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Go ahead.
This is 892 Middle Road.
So again, if you'll notice, the buildings, the steeple does stick up ever so slightly, but it's below the horizon because you're looking down on this development. So the steeple and the cupola can be spotted, but as you can see, they certainly do not overpower the landscape.
892.
Please be near the microphone.
I believe on some of the information I got, you've got my house numbered 892. My house is 876.
Okay.
Okay, it's the corner house.
Okay.
Is everything more or less from the corner house or?
Well, I didn't actually prepare these images, the architect.
Jen,
did.
could you go
So-
back to the, where it shows where the various houses are? There you go.
This is my house.
And what's it labeled as?
So it's labeled as 892,
Okay,
but you're saying it's 870?
876.
876.
okay. So it's from that house, but it looks like they had them labeled wrong.
So if that's the case, there really isn't any problem with losing.
Yeah.
Please, yeah.
It appears with the layout of this now as it stands, that everything's going to be okay.
Correct. And we're putting that requirement in the resolution. Like a couple things, they requested the 53 height. We're only going to grant that for the 2 buildings that need it, which is the community center and the community apartments. The other buildings were all below 35 feet in height. But then, like I said, we also put a cap on the maximum elevation, which is, I won't lie, it's unusual. It's the first time we've ever done that. But that's specifically to address you guys' concerns. We don't want a plan, okay, we've given this, and just understand special permits stay with the parcel. So whereas these guys might do it right, 50 years from now, someone buys it and they say, oh, well, we were allowed to have a 53-foot tall building. I'm going to put it right at the intersection. That would be a problem. This would not allow them to do that. So the way we've written it, they could not do that.
The future development, where you're coming up closer to the corner of Middle and Erie Station, those buildings there, what is the elevation?
So the highest elevation near that intersection is 639.8, and that is the absolute highest portion of any constructed material. That's the villa closest to the intersection,
right?
Which is almost 10 feet lower than the intersection. So this view that's on the screen right now is actually from your property, and that's what it. And I think this is the post growth I think if you scroll back
Yeah,
one.
VU2 is post-growth.
Yep.
So that's before the new trees grow in. And then the second one shows what happens when the new trees grow in.
And I think it's worth pointing out that the horizon is true on that. So you can see that this sits well below the horizon. This doesn't create a
We
silhouette.
should put
That's your-
downtown on there too.
Yeah, you can see it.
Well, and that's one of the things that we understand that was important is to not block the view of the horizon because of the view of downtown, because of the view of the rest of Henrietta. So
And I appreciate it very much.
you bet. Okay, keep going through. What's the next? So this is 900. So again, as you can see initially, because today it's a farmer's field, there's not a whole lot of vegetation there. So they're going to fill in trees along the buffer, which will help screen. Of course, it'll also help screen the apartments from the road noise too. And again, with all these, if you look, you'll be able to spot the steeple, but as you'll see, it is not imposing on the landscape at all.
Doesn't look like much at all now.
It doesn't, no, because it's so far down the hill.
Yeah.
That's why we wanted them to do this, because I have an advantage. I did this for a living, right? Most people don't have the ability to visualize this stuff in 3D. So that's why we required and told them we needed this before we closed our public hearings.
Soon those trees are gonna max out at about 75 feet. That's it.
I don't know if I can speak to the height of the trees to be planted, but they'll be typical, hardwoods.
We'll make sure there's no mighty oaks or redwoods.
Right.
So note to the planning board, Chris, if you're listening, make sure the, what do you call it? My brain's drawing a blank.
The landscape plan.
Landscape plan, thank you. Make sure the landscape plan does not include redwoods or mighty oaks or anything nice and tall.
For elms.
Are you through? Do we have any more, Jen, or is that the last one?
They look like they're watercolors, like you hired an artist just to paint them. They're so pretty.
Yeah.
These architects are artists. They really are. They're
Yeah,
the
this
best I've
is-
ever worked with.
Truly amazing. I'm just looking at them going, wow, you almost want to frame them.
So these ones, can you go back one view? So this is from further down, as you're starting to go further down the hill on Erie Station.
Yeah.
So now you're starting to see it a little bit more level. But again, if you look at the folks at there today, they have trouble seeing over the highway today when you're down, because basically Erie Station goes down into call it a glen, for lack of a better term. But certainly the folks up on the hill and up on Search Hill, they have a good view overlooking. In fact, they probably have a really nice view of our fireworks. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, keep going, Jen.
And that's it.
That's the end.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions on, specifically on that before we get to opening up the questions? Okay. Yeah, hold on, I haven't asked the town, I just wanted, if anybody wanted to see something additional.
It's on
Hey,
the east side.
It's only on the northeast portion. There is none of this is being developed on the west side of Middle Road. Okay, hold on.
Is Lois, is it on? So it was okay. Oh, if there's houses along there, so are all those houses or are you building
No,
beyond,
there's
behind
no,
the houses?
where this is today is Farm Field. It's the northeast corner, so it's between Erie Station Road and the Thruway and to the east of Middle Road.
So the entrance then will be from Erie Station Road?
There is,
We-
go ahead.
We have an entrance on Erie Station Road, almost to the eastern limits of our development, and one kind of north centrally located on Middle Road.
And how far along? Because
I'm not
my
sure what you're
recollection is there's houses there. So how far back does this go on
There are
on
no
Middle
houses
Road?
around here. There's a vacant parcel on the west side of the road.
So just so you understand, the development you're talking about, that's further to the east. There is yet another farmer's field between this development and that where those houses are. So there are no houses there today.
Okay.
All the houses are on the south side of Erie Station Road, going up the hill of Middle Road. As you come down the hill on Erie Station Road, you then hit was it a Frontier facility?
Yeah.
It was a telephone facility. And then you go further down, and that gentleman's house is actually down by the road. I mean, I don't even think he can see over Erie Station Road.
There used to be a house at the corner there, but it's been gone a very long time because I know my daughter went to high school with the girl. Well, her grandparents lived there. So it's probably been gone 20 years, maybe, long time. But there was an old farmhouse at the corner there a long time ago. I'm sorry?
It was knocked down in 2012, he said.
Okay, so not as long as I thought. 10 years. 10 years ago.
And actually, I mean, if you look at the imagery, you can see the remnants of the driveway and where the house used to be. So. Okay, questions from the board? I know we've seen this a lot, but I didn't know if any of this stuff raised any new questions.
Not a question, but I really enjoyed the give and take between the residents and the applicant, answering questions and making adjustments. It was very nice to see. I appreciate that.
So, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and I just want to thank you for the watercolor versions that you did because it really helps put, some people can, visualize and some can, and that just puts such a great visualization on it. So I appreciate that.
I will pass that along to the architects.
So the other thing I will note is that we wanted somewhere a means to connect the sewer in the future. That decision doesn't have to be made now, but we'll want to see those plans. I don't remember if we put that before a C of O, or I don't remember what the requirement is on that, but basically what we want to see is it can either be, so I know there was some reticence to making it go through this development. The other option is it could come up the west side of Middle Road. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be in now, but we need, so like one of the things we've talked about, the county is going to be redoing Middle Road. So it would make sense if you're going to ever look to bring sewer to the west side, do it before they redo the road so that you're not cutting a brand new, newly paved road. So we don't care if it comes up the east side through your, which we understand can cause some issues for the private portion of the sewer, or if it comes up the west side. I don't care which, as long as there is a stub that somewhere down the road that we'd be able to connect the folks going up the hill to essentially have a gravity feed down to it.
Is this, I don't know if this is planned to be bonded in terms of the typical utility bonds we have, or if this is outside the scope of that, that may inform the timing. So I don't know if the engineering department had a thought on that.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, when we have public utilities put in alongside a project, those are typically covered by a bond, so that if something goes wrong or they're not fully installed.
Yes, so
we can
that
come in.
so the pump station, the force main, and then as you go north on, so basically the force main pushes it up over the hill, the crest of Middle Road to the north. Once it crests that hill, it's gravity feed down into the sewer on Lehigh Station Road. So all of that is going to be public sewer.
Right.
Their original intention was from the pump station in was going to be private. This whole thing, that way it's one development, they would maintain all the sewers, we wouldn't. What I'm asking for is that stub, whether they run the main, they can run a main through up to where that future, I'll call it the southwest corner villa. Or the other option, again, is they can bring it across the street so that it can come up the west side of Middle Road, because if something's ever done there, because it would be multiple developments by law, it has to be a public sewer. So it would already have to be a public sewer, whereas on this side, because there's only a single use, it can remain a private. So again, I don't care which way, but that stub would be considered public sewer and would be bonded.
Okay, so is this in relation to condition number 7? You want me to read that to make sure we're all on the same
Sure.
page? The condition 7, that'll be up for consideration later. When we consider whether to approve this or not, reads, the applicant shall provide for private connection points to the new sanitary sewer being run south from Lehigh Station Road along Middle Road. In addition, the applicant shall provide a means to extend the sanitary sewer south from the new pump station up towards the intersection of Erie Station Road and Middle Road, all to the satisfaction of the town engineer.
Right. So the public connection points were the ones that we're talking about. And again, those are actually, they've already got plans submitted for that. They're already been working on boring under the throughway for the force main. In fact, the town has to, New York State DOT, I believe, required the town, since it's going to be the town's sewer when it's all done, we had to be involved in that application. So those are the connection points that the first ones that they're talking about. It's on that gravity feed on Middle Road North over the hill, you know, past where the force main turns into a gravity feed.
Do you feel
The
that,
second one is to the south.
do you feel that that condition accurately conveys what it is
It
that
does,
you're trying to
yeah.
convey? When you say provide a means to extend,
So that's where, again, this gets back to where I don't care if they bring a trunk through their development that would be a public trunk and have so the means is typically it's a manhole at the end of the line, right? So they can do that, or also the other option is again to go under Middle Road and put a manhole on the west side of Middle Road where that could eventually come into.
is that clear and understandable and acceptable to the applicant?
It is, and I'll let Mike speak to it further.
Hi, Mike Morris. Yes, actually with the pump station, we are sharing the cost of that pump station with Sean Donahoe, who owns a property to the west of Middle Road. So he doesn't have any immediate building plans, but the intent is to have access to it on the west side.
Yeah, and that's what I was pretty sure you want to do that. So that's my point is that's an acceptable solution. All I would ask is that, again, because there's going to be work on Middle Road, that he considers doing that now while this is being built instead of in the future, depending on whatever happens to the west side. I'd rather it be brought across now and just, so again, it could just be a single manhole on the other side of the street, bringing the pipe plumbing across it. And I say single manhole, that's my thinking. I am not a sewer guy. It would be what's acceptable to our sewer and sewer and drainage folks, as well as the director of engineering and planning.
Supervisor, when is this? There's no
time limit on it.
Yeah,
I
and we
understand.
probably should, do we want to put one on there to make sure it gets done?
I wouldn't do it by building permit, then I would do it by C of O, because again,
Okay.
it's got to be during construction. So they've got to have their sewer in there before they get a C of O anyway. So
Right, so this condition shall be satisfied prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy?
is that, that's perfect. I assume that presents no issue to you?
No, that presents no issue. Our plan is actually to get this pump station done this construction season. So do that now.
Yeah.
And then not be starting construction until next year on the main.
Yeah, so it may be done before they even pull their first building permit for one of the buildings, but I'd still rather give them to this.
Before they do the road.
Well, because the other thing is if they decide to go the other path, I fully suspect, in fact, we queried with Sean, I fully expect them to go the west side route because it's just much simpler. But that way, if they don't and have to go the other route, that interior sewer would be built while they're building for the complex itself. But I suspect the crossover will go in when he puts in the pump station. Because he's going to have he's going to be digging pits to bore under the throughway. He's going to be digging a giant trench all the way up Middle Road to put in the force main and the gravity main. So it's not a whole lot more effort to drag that other one across. Basically, what he would do is dig a pit, bore across, push the hole, you know.
So I'm going to add an additional sentence to that condition then that reads, this condition, which was further clarified during the town board meeting on June 9, 2022, such additional details are incorporated herein, shall be satisfied prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. That way there, we're
Sure.
still clear. Okay.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions from the board before I turn it open to the public?
Just, have we resolved the issue of the second entrance with the Monroe County?
So Monroe County is looking at it. Brent Penwarden from the Monroe County DOT was out at the intersection today. Again, from a traffic standpoint, it doesn't warrant a second entrance. He understands that the fire marshal requires a second entrance. His feeling initially was that that could be gated. We told him about the intersection. He came and looked at it. He's actually going to look at crash data. He is fully aware. I explained to him the feedback from residents. If anybody wants to send me anecdotal data, I will forward it on to him, because I did explain to him that part of the issue is in many cases, it's not an accident, but it's heart pounding because it's a near accident. But of course, those never get reported. So they don't have that in the data. But he is going to listen to the public hearing, or I'm probably going to send him the minutes that cover that. Because again, there were a lot of people speaking to that effect. And again, if anybody out there in the public wants to send me any information you have about the problems of that intersection, feel free. I will forward those on to him. Again, it doesn't really affect, from a seeker standpoint, the intersection works. It's passing, right? It's just the less traffic we can put through there, the better. They want to fully justify it, because whereas they sure understand it for this one, if every developer then asks for it, they have to have, just like as we talk about any of this stuff, they need to be able to explain why they approved it for this one if they turn someone else down. So he is absolutely looking at the sight lines for that intersection, and we'll be taking that into account in his decision. The way we've written it is that if they don't open the gate, in other words, the active entrance will be the middle road entrance. If they have to gate the other entrance, it would be the Erie Station Road entrance that would be gated. We're hoping that he will okay the no secondary gate, because again, I think that will reduce the amount of traffic that goes through that problem intersection. Anyone who's ever seen it knows that people come down the hill and they are either going too fast, not paying enough attention, and have no ability to stop, or for whatever reason, they don't think that the stop signs apply to them and they can go through them. So the fewer cars we can put through that intersection, the better. And I'm sure you guys don't mind not putting it in the gate. In fact, I got to believe I wrote, correct me if I stray, I wrote that the applicant also believes that having the second access is optimal.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're opposed to the gate. I was going to say that if there's another meeting with County DOT, I would welcome the opportunity to attend that, just to share some insight about the inner workings of this community, because I think it's fairly unique, and it's best, I think everybody's best served with a second fully operational access point.
I will offer them that, because again, they need to be able to, when they look at the stuff, they have to justify their decision.
Right. Understood.
So I'll offer that to Brent and see what he says.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the board before I open it to the public? I will now open it to public. What you might want to do is sit at that table where there's the microphones. That way you can answer any questions that people might have. Kevin, I know you're chomping at the bit. Go ahead.
Yes, Kevin Yost, 1474 Middle Road. First of all, be advised that four-way intersection at Middle Road and Erie Station Road is very congested, at least at the afternoon weekday rush hour. And sometimes people don't know whose turn it is at that intersection when there's all that traffic there. And perhaps for the morning rush hour too, I don't know, because I don't work anymore. And I don't. And then another thing is, we talk about, Mr. Supervisor talks about boring under the thruway for sewer pipe. Would it be possible to have a sewer pipe underneath the Lehigh Valley Trail under the culvert under the thruway instead? It would be more cost effective perhaps.
No, because we want so first off, the connection point is at Middle Road and Lehigh. And the second thing is by going that route, it allows all those houses along that path to connect to a sewer, which they don't have today. They're all septic. And, you know, as septic codes have changed, a lot of houses that are on smaller parcels, they will not be able to, if their septic system fails, they will not be able to find a new location for a leach field. They would have to do what's often referred to as an engineered leach field, which is very expensive. So to have the ability, if their leach fields fail, if their septic systems fail, for them to be able to connect to a sewer is very advantageous. In addition, if we were, it's a long, the amount of distance to get over to that culvert, it just isn't worth it. So, and then the second thing is you're now going through a wetlands to get to the sewer, which doesn't work either. So.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Yes, there are spectacular views of the downtown skyline from the crest of the hill down just past till about Erie Station Road before you get the trees on the north side of the thruway. And yes, you can see not only the Henrietta 4th of July fireworks, but the downtown Rochester 4th of July fireworks, the Charlie fireworks, and the Pittsford fireworks as well.
Yep. And I would assume Brighton too.
Yes, perhaps. I think so. Yeah. And this development on that, what's on that little cornfield there, and then on the northeast corner of Middle and Erie Station, between Erie Station, Middle, and the thruway, is better than previous ideas for development where you're going to be there in the mid-90s. I talk about having a youth soccer complex there, which that was bad there, and is now on John Street extension, a better location and better than ice arena that's going to be put there before. And then early mid 2000s, Nichols and Henry Hansen owned land, talked about Eagles Landing Industrial Park, which we all balked against, and that is now on Jefferson and Castle Road by a different developer, Buckingham. I am sure that Rachel Warren and Rick White are not going to turn over in the graves for this development. I support this development too, despite the loss of farmland, and I'm quite sure Henry Hansen, who once owned that land, is going to smile in his grave as well.
Thank you. I will note we have been in communication with the Monroe County Ag and Markets with regards to the loss of farmland. I will also note through efforts through our farmland protection plan, we just received notification recently that 250 acres of farmland in Henrietta will be preserved, including the Van Voorhees and the Stone Crop Farms. That's in addition to other monies we've been able to obtain and agricultural preservation put in place. All told, we're probably looking, we've got farmers close to $3.5 million to help keep their farms going, and we've preserved probably close to 400 acres of farmland. So while we are losing some farmland here, we have been pretty successful in the last couple of years of preserving farmland, and not just preserving it, the land and open space, but getting money for the farmers so that, you know, one of the things for small farms, which the Van Voorhees is the largest single parcel in town, that we've basically been getting them not just to preserve the land, but getting them the money that they need to update their equipment, and or for some of them, it's to retire and pass the farm down to their descendants. So, you know, like I said, whereas we are losing some farmland here, we've been very successful in preserving it elsewhere in town at no cost to the taxpayer, I'll add. So it's all been being done through incentive zoning type activity. Great work by the Genesee Land Trust, and then New York State Ag and Markets. So a lot of great work in that regards.
I might add that this is this farmland we're losing your side of Middle Road between your station road through is very minute anyway. And also the Department of Agriculture and Markets gets money from the profit of the Genesee Valley Regional Market. I know when they first started doing this, their profit was 12 million, so which started going to the Department of Ag and Market, so around probably,
yeah, and I think
somewhere around that ballpark today.
And I think that's the funding that they use to then assist these farmers. That's where some of the money that came in to preserve Stone Crop and Van Voorhees Farms came from, is that type of revenue. So thank you. Next. Coming up.
My name is Brian Toby. I live at 1230 Erie Station Road. The easternmost access road, I'd prefer to see it gated due to that parking lot. As all those vehicles.
Which parking lot?
If you go to the sky view, I can show you.
Jen, could you bring up the site plan?
Hold on one second. Jen's not here, so we're gonna try to find it.
Okay, Linda, can you bring up the site plan?
I need to go down to her desk.
I do have another question in the meantime.
Okay, why don't you go to your other question while they're trying to pull that up?
Is there any lighting proposed on that access road?
If that mic isn't working, pull the other one towards you. Use the other table mic.
There is no actual street lighting. We've got internal lighting proposed, but not actual like street lighting along the.
Oh, even like any low rise lighting? Anything?
Well, we'll have it on site, but you'll find that site lighting is heavily scrutinized. There's something called dark sky compliance. They want to prevent light spill from going off site, and our lighting plan will comply with that.
Will they all be like downward facing?
Shielded,
Correct,
exactly.
yeah.
Yep, they will be. Yeah, and again, we've passed the dark sky compliance. So they do have to, in fact, I still want to go back and visit some of those car dealerships.
You can still see them from us.
Oh, I know. Believe me, I look north from Brooks Road and the sky glows over there.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
So on that eastern parking lot with, I don't know how many spots are.
Yeah. I don't know the number of spaces off the top. So there are roughly 200 spaces there. So you want to see this gated down there?
Yeah, because I would assume if you have a full access road there, all those cars will leave Erie Station due to it's easier. I would assume. I mean, I can't tell how people would go home, but I mean, the shortest drive is to Erie Station. Right.
It depends where they're going. So if they're going north to the shopping areas, they're probably going to go out Middle Road. I would.
Yeah,
think.
well, yeah. I mean, you got to go all the way around as well, but also to that note, the speed of your station road. I mean, I know it's marked 35, but not one person does. Maybe the elderly person going to Wegmans.
Well,
But,
the nice thing, that's who's going to be in this. I mean, that's one of the things to keep in mind, whereas it is 200 spaces. This is senior, so they're not going to be out on the road. Typically, they tend to avoid the prime driving times because the roads are the busiest.
Yeah, I would assume those that'd be for like events, like outside events, more people would visit for that parking lot, or?
No, that parking lot is for the apartments, not for the community center.
Okay, so that's all
The-
apartments at white, lighter shade there?
Uh,
I've missed a few meetings, sorry.
So basically, the part of the building that zigzags, that's the apartments, and the one that has the biggest volume or area that you see on the map, that's the community center. They're actually labeled. So the big parking lot that's in the curve down, to the basically further south. Yep, that area there. That's the one that is for the events. So again, if you look at that one now, it's further to backtrack if I'm going out Middle Road, which again is where I think the majority of the traffic is going, it's further to go out to Erie Station, over to the intersection and back down than it would be to just go west and out the middle
Yeah, if
road
you're going up
entrance.
through 390. or
Yeah, that long skinny parking lot, that's for the people who actually live in those apartments.
What kind of vegetation will be planted in between our property and there will be more mature?
So where exactly are you in relation to this?
So our house is not on the floor here, but we don't have any well, we have 2 trees, but they will not block
I think the
those.
best way to show that would be I think it's one of the early aerials of the view sheds
Actually,
that were provided.
can you bring up, I think it's called the aerial, what was I just looking? Aerial site plan, because I think his house is on the aerial site plan.
Yeah, I'm at 1230, so you could see it from one of the renderings.
Linda, can you, oh, sorry, my screen is frozen. Bear with me. I will get it in a minute.
Okay. So I think your house is to the south. Do you have a neighbor directly across the street from you?
Yes.
Yeah, so those 2 houses, yeah, they're on, so you're in the lower left corner. Well, it was there a second ago. There we go. You're in that.
Yeah, it's not there now, but the last one there was. Yeah.
She
Oh,
can
there you
raise
go.
it up.
Zoom out. yeah.
There you go.
Yep, you can see right down here. Eastern side there.
So are you putting vegetation along the eastern property line?
We are between the proposed development and our east boundary. There's significant trees to be planted, so much so that I actually cautioned the applicants about, listen, what you're showing is going to be expected. So the intention is to have an incredibly mature landscape throughout.
Over time.
There will be, yes.
Yeah, what would be the maturity of the trees as planted?
So typically when trees are planted, they're usually about 6 feet in height, usually between 4 and 6.
Could there be larger or more mature? That way we don't get polluted by the traffic and any street lighting.
Yeah, you know what? I
apartment
appreciate this feedback because we're wrapping up the final touches on the site plan application. We can look at adding berms so that 6-foot tree suddenly becomes a 10 or a 12-foot tall tree without, because
would
the
that-
cost goes up dramatically over 6 feet.
Yeah.
So
Okay, yeah.
we're happy.
Well,
to
the other
provide that
advantage
buffering.
that the berm might be is that it would make sure that any runoff stays away from the agricultural
That was
land to
another
the
question I had.
east. Yeah.
Was drainage into our eastern field there.
So we do have that, again, is in the approval plan, because that was specifically noted. And I will point out that Bob King from the County Ag and Markets also reiterated that when you disrupt the clay drain tiles, it can sometimes cause unexpected additional wetness. So we have in there that not only does their plan need to address that, but that if it is insufficient, they will need to come back and correct it.
Okay. So as it stands right now, that would be open road, full access road? or
I
gated?
don't, right now it's gated.
Okay.
If the county changes their mind, it would be an access. But again, when you look at the 2 entrances, I fully expect the middle road to be significantly more heavily traveled than the Erie Station Road. If, you know, when you look at what's out in that direction, yeah, there is stuff on 15A, but anybody who's ever gone northbound on 15A to the intersection with Lehigh Station knows that's the worst direction to approach that intersection. You are most, you know, that's always the longest lines. You're much better off going up Middle Road and coming across Lehigh than you are going northbound on 15A. So I suspect if they go that way initially, they'll probably change their practice pretty quick.
Well, what sightlines are the DOT looking at up at the
intersection itself? They're not going to be able to change the sight lines, but they understand that the sight lines from that intersection are not great. You know, one of the things, if you think about all these old roads, which Middle Road is, right? They're old farm roads, or, you know, back in the days before cars. where did they put all the roads, especially when they were unpaved? They put them on the ridge tops to keep them dry so you didn't get stuck in the mud. It was great for horse and buggies. It's lousy for cars now that are coming flying down those hills and the sight lines. You know, you didn't have that problem with the horse and buggy, but you do have that problem with the cars. So the problem is, how would you remove that problem? These guys would have to have elevators to get into their driveway. So there really isn't any way to fix it, but they understand that if that's a real problem, then our goal is to minimize the number of vehicles to go through there. They very well could be making that south entrance active. But like I said, from a amount of traffic going out there, the parking lot that is we'll see the most likely for what I'll call large influx is the one near the community center. And when you look at that egress path going out to Middle Road, makes more sense than going out to Erie Station.
Oh.
The exception will be people who live south of here. But again, far more people live to the north. There's far more businesses to the north. When you go up Middle Road, if I'm going to get to Jefferson, right, I can go right up Middle and cut over to Highland. So, you know, one of the things that we're looking at, and again, the county's already doing it, they're actually going to be improving Middle Road from Erie Station up to Lehigh Station. They're actually going to be making improvements and fix those intersections because they understand that, well, first it's scheduled, it's in need. As you saw, the first thing they did was fix the bridge. Well, fine, they fixed the bridge, but the paving needs to be redone, right? It's a mess. They understand that, but it's, yeah, well, again, it was, but the comment was it was better before. And that's often the case. So basically they were fixing the underlying things and they're going to come in, they're going to mill that off and put new pavement down. But they're also going to be widening the shoulders. They're going to be strengthening the shoulders. They're going to be improving the intersection itself. So again, not from a sight line because they're not changing the elevations, but just in terms of like turn radiuses and things like that. If there's an area where they're seeing that vehicles are cutting the corner and they're off the road, they're going to essentially widen that turn radius. That's most likely going to be the eastbound right turn. So as you're coming eastbound on Lehigh Station, because of the angle, you know, it's more than a 90-degree cutback. I believe they're expanding that turn radius so that less people go off the pavement, for lack of a better way to put it. But
one last to that, is there any plans for consolidation of the utility poles through that area?
That I don't know. If there was a second set of poles put in, I can follow up with, you know, what happens a lot of times, the utility company comes in and puts in the new poles, and then they have to wait till the telecommunication companies come in and move all of their stuff over. If that is the scenario, that we have two sets of poles, new and old, let me know and I will reach out to the utility company. We can sometimes put a deadline on those telecoms to say, hey, it's been sitting like this for far too long. You got to get them moved, or you're going to move it or lose it, right? Because you know, it's typically the utility companies aren't the ones that are delaying the removal of the old poles. It's the telecoms. Well, hold on, Tim. You just wanted to follow up
So
on
we
that.
have called Frontier to have a few of the poles on our property to be removed and consolidated with our Genie. It's been 6 months. But I mean, it's been several years. since
Is
I've
the
done that.
issue with Frontier or with RG&E?
Frontier?
Okay, Frontier, I won't lie, it's going to be harder. Craig just raised his hand. He'll follow up on that.
Okay.
We have a really good liaison with RG&E. She's been phenomenal. Actually, we have two, but the primary is Lori Picardo and the second is Veronica Dasher. They've been phenomenal when we bring to these types of things. So we'll certainly bring it to her attention. Unfortunately, we have no such person at Frontier.
Oh, thank you.
But Craig can be a bit of a bulldog with stuff like that. So, okay, go ahead, Sam.
Well, I'm just gonna, Sam DeSalvo again. They did Erie Station Road. It was one of the first roads they started replacing poles. We still got the second the old poles still in there. And most of it appears to be the telecommunication lines and stuff.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of times you'll see the utility company will come and lop the top of the old poles off.
Yeah, they're
so
all
that
lopped
yeah,
off.
yeah.
They don't need the upper part anymore.
Okay, we'll follow up on that to see if they can get rid of the old poles. We were successful in doing, I don't remember where it was, I think it was West Henrietta Road. I don't remember. There was some place recently that we did pressure them and it took a few months, but they did eventually come out and remove the
Every
old
time I
poles.
see one of the trucks go by and they got old poles in it, I run out to see if they got them on Erie Station Road. You were mentioning about lighting and illegal lighting up in the air and stuff like that. I talked to you a while back about if you're going around to the car dealerships,
Yeah,
come on over my house, please.
We
and
will
I'll
look
show
at that
you.
one. We did work over there to try to identify who it was, but we'll follow up on that. We're short
I think it's
personnel in some of our
UPS.
code enforcement, but we actually, I believe tonight we're authorizing the hiring of a second code enforcement officer. So
I think it might be UPS.
it's distinctly possible.
They're back
It's
lots.
that area when we looked at it, but yeah, we'll work to figure that out. Thank you.
And fireworks. It is unbelievable, the firework display that you see on the horizon from east to west. There's probably 20 fireworks displays going off on 4th of July in that area.
So if you like fireworks, pay attention to when Sam puts his house up for sale. Okay, thanks, Sam. Anybody else? Is there anybody online? Okay. Did you have any closing comments?
No, I actually won to the benefit of the neighbors. Assuming this moves forward to site plan, you'll have another crack at a public hearing for concerns. The gentleman with the landscaping look forward on my plans. And lastly, if anybody wants a business card, I'm happy to discuss this offline with you and do whatever I can to address any concerns.
Yeah, and I want to say you guys have been great. The Freemasons have been amazing partners in that. And, you know, you've been, anytime we ask for stuff, you get it back to us. And you've been incredibly receptive to making changes based off feedback from not just the public hearings, but the community, the neighborhood hearings that we'd had prior to the public hearing. So again, kudos to you guys, because it's great when a developer is paying attention to the needs of the community into which they're coming. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So hearing no further comments, I'm going to close the special use permit, the public hearing for special use permit application numbers 2022-015 and 018 for the Masonic Care Community. Because of anytime it's a coordinated seeker review or a larger seeker review, we do that later in the meeting. We don't do what I'll call the on-fly resolutions here because there's way too many conditions. Not to mention we have to do the seeker determination. So next up, before we go to our first resolution, actually, it looks like we've put them in there. Yeah, but before we do that, actually, I see her patiently waiting. If Denise, you want to come up and, I'm sorry, Courtney, so that Denise gets freed up. Yeah, I just noticed
Hello.
that she put them first in the agenda.
Denise is actually home with my two little ones tonight. So I'm Courtney Finnerty. I live on 30 Mar Drive here in Henrietta. And I'm hoping to plan a Pride celebration. It will be Henrietta's, I hope, for all of your support, Henrietta's 4th annual Pride flag raising here out in Town Hall. The proposed date is the 27th, which I've heard you guys have had a chance to talk about in workshop. But I am hoping to have, again, your unanimous support in Henrietta supporting our LGBTQ community. I'm super proud of Henrietta for having all of both our Democrats and Republicans in the past unanimously support this event, and I'm hoping for that same support this year. And I also want to invite you all to attend. It's going to be, as I said, I hope on the 27th here, right out June, from 6 to 8 p.m. We'll try to raise the flag around 6:30, and we invite Steve Schultz, as well as all of you, to either come read the proclamation or at least come and show your support. If you're able to make it, be great. We're planning on having a bounce house and food trucks and lawn games and make it a really family-friendly celebration of our LGBTQ families, and just another statement of how wonderful and diverse the town of Henrietta is. So we've had really successful events in the past. I'm hoping we'll have another really great one this year, and I'd love for you to all vote yes, proclaim it to be Pride Week. We do have the Henrietta Public Library is always excited to join us and be involved. They want to come do another pop-up library out on the town hall, and also they want to have a Pride Story Hour that week, which has been fun in the past as well. So as part of Pride Week.
So I'll also note that one of the things we're doing differently this year, in the past, we typically did it on a Saturday. We've shifted it to a Monday to make it easier for our recreation department to be there. So they'll be able to set up the bouncy house, tents, chairs, get everything set up. They're also going to assist. So Courtney and her team have been getting like JoJo's Cool Bus is going to be there and some other stuff. I did hear back from Pam. They are going to work to get a food truck. Since it's going to be after dinner, we thought it would be great. You know, if people, we'll probably have the food truck there a little earlier so that anybody who wants to get there and eat can do so as well. So
And we've for the past few years, we've worked really hard to try to keep it extremely low cost for the town of Henrietta. It's been almost exclusively volunteer run, outside of a couple of staff members helping to get us tables and chairs set up. We've got a bakery donating all kinds of cookies and cupcakes this year. We have community organizations donate prizes. We do a raffle and we donate it to a local LGBT. We've done a homeless shelter in the past. So it's a really great event for families in Henrietta. We try to keep the event free, and everything there is low cost as possible. So it's really accessible for all of our community to come. So I just wanted to thank you for your support for that in the past. And let's keep making a really successful event. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
No, thank
Any
you.
questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Courtney, for organizing this for the past several years. And putting all your time and energy and work into this. I know it's very meaningful to the whole community, but particularly to our youth to see this embrace and welcoming atmosphere for them. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I think it's great. When I was a teenager years ago, it would have been huge for me to see on like a town hall property, see that this town supports me and cares about me. So I feel very strongly mostly for kids, and especially teenagers who may not be out yet, just to say this town cares about you. We love you. There's a place for you here. And so we try to make a fun event for it, but it's also symbolic to have that flag up for a week to show that Henrietta loves and appreciates all of our residents. So thank you for being supportive of that.
Thank you.
Okay. I promised she could go because she has young children at home and she needs to help take care of them. So sure.
I just wanted to share, you had said there's a few different options for how you guys may go about that, if you guys vote on it that night or.
Yeah, I'll go into that later with them.
Okay, so you don't need anything more from me?
Nope, don't need anything more from you.
Okay, just wanted to thank you all and have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, so in looking at the way they did move didn't notice initially, they did move the two resolutions regarding Masonic care to this point. So
Yes.
Rick pointed it out to me. Well, I saw it as after I called Courtney up. So I look at that. Let's see. I got to see who's on it. Oh, it doesn't say.
Oh, but it's on the other one, Steve Schultz and Rick Page. SS and RP.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, so I'll move. Fellow board members, I have resolution 12-194, 2022 to adopt seeker determination and issue a negative declaration for the senior living Masonic care community facility.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Rick, just remember when you move, mention that you're going to include Don Young's
The,
addition to which number was
yeah,
that?
the addition to condition 7 on clarification and timing with the certificate of occupancy.
Right. You can have Don say that, but just
Okay.
make sure you're moving it with Don's additions.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-195/2022 to approve special use permit 2022-015/018 for the Masonic care community, including
Don?
That condition number 7 be added to as follows. This condition, which was further clarified during the town board meeting on June 9th, 2022, shall be satisfied prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy.
Make sure you fully enunciate. We have interpreters who have to sign what you're saying. Okay,
Seconded.
thank you. Discussion. Any further discussion?
Do we need to add the part and to allow the construction of a senior living?
What's the question?
Yeah, so if you,
Just because
he was reading the thing
Councilmember
on
Page
here.
got to through part, but didn't complete the
You
entire
want me to read it here?
resolution.
Here's where it has the full,
Yes, further down, it went into more detail.
you can just read mine. Rick. Sorry, hold on. That one.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You want me to read it to the end?
Go ahead. Yeah, let's do it again.
Resolution number 12, fellow board members and Supervisor Schultz, resolution number 12-195/2022. I make a motion to approve special use permits number 2022-015 and 2022-018 to allow the construction of a senior living Masonic care community facility with an increased maximum height, including
The town attorney's modifications as previously stated.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Okay.
I did switch to resolution.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yep, I didn't notice it either. That's something we ought to look at starting is maybe using what's on the summary here for what's in the list. Because when we transition from one to the other, you don't always have the thing
Complete.
open.
Yeah, the complete statements.
Okay, any further comment? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations, and we look forward to the development, the community. And again, all what I refer to as drag along infrastructure that's going to help with regards to people along Middle Road, both to the north of you and eventually to the south of you. So as well as thank you for adding the sidewalk to allow the folks who live nearby to be able to walk your internal trails. That'll be a very nice addition. Thank you very much. Okay, next, we have a public hearing for the proposed local law to include conditions pertaining to specific zoning districts and zoning code. So as stated when we called for the public hearing. There's a portion of the old code book that included 77 pages of meets and bounds. However, included in there also were a few paragraphs for any zoning district that had specific conditions included with the district. So, you know, as an example, in the B2 district that includes the parcel that was just in here earlier for the apartments, that includes a specific that says any change in there has to go through full site plan approval. It cannot do what's called an administrative site plan approval. So that's an example of a condition there. That's not the normal case for a commercial B2 zone, but that one, because of its proximity to houses, that's why that specific was there. There's other ones that include additional uses or additional allowed uses or additional prohibited uses. So the problem was you couldn't find it anywhere in our current code book. It's still in force because they were passed by law, and that was the approving resolution. So whenever it came up, we had to have somebody dig through the old records and pull that up. Well, what I did is ask them to pull all those up, and we've now brought them over. There are a few clerical updates because the code numbers have changed since they came over, and then there are a few minor changes that I'm recommending we make. Those are all spelled out in they're not spelled out in the local law because the local law just says here's what the code's going to look like, but in the resolution they're in there. So you will see at the next meeting, you'll see what minor changes we're talking about. And as an example of one of those, prior to me being in office, apartments were allowed in industrial zones. They had put a moratorium, and that's essentially what prompted the update to the comprehensive land use plan, because we were seeing apartments appear where they probably shouldn't. And we were losing too much valuable industrial land, which was then part of the impetus to do the Southwest Quadrant GEIS. That made no sense to us, especially when you read all the older comprehensive land use plan. They make very clear that the thruway is essentially the dividing line, and there shouldn't be a whole lot of industrial development south. There's some you look at Thruway Park and but again, as you get, especially Erie Station Road, south of Erie Station Road, there's not supposed to be any. So if you go back to this one district, the old industrial district, in its list of allowed uses, it included apartment buildings because that's what was allowed at the time. That's one of the changes I'd like to make since we've pulled them out of apartment buildings. So it's changes like that. So, but anyways, like I said, that's what you're going to be seeing for that local law. I don't know if anybody has any questions, comments. Probably not. If you don't know what meets and bounds are, you're not alone. It basically describes the boundary itself. Yeah, if you have a comment, come on up.
I really have just a question.
Sure.
So-
Again, state your name.
Lois. So what I'm understanding is this is the plan, you're presenting the plan, but when you go to make the changes, then it's brought before the public again? Or
So we're just announcing the public hearing. So when we do a local law, oh, this is a public hearing. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I apologize. This is the public hearing. We called last meeting, didn't we?
Yeah.
So this is the public hearing. So those are the changes. So I can go through. That means I've got the actual changes. Let me go through them. I'm sorry. Last meeting killed me. Not the 2 weeks ago.
Just to make a comment.
Yep.
Since we're supposed to come in here and have some ideas and thoughts, how can we possibly have all those ideas and thoughts if we don't really know what it is you're doing?
Well, when we call for the public hearing at the previous meeting, it included the local law, it included all that stuff. That's what I thought I was explaining now. I've got
And
some.
I kind of wish you were, because I don't have any of that information.
Well,
in front of
again,
me.
that's okay, but it's out there. It's been on the website. It's been available. It's been advertised. So I'll go through. Why can't I find it? 6. Nope, I don't see it listed there.
Supervisor, didn't you just explain all the changes?
No, there's 1 or 2 that I didn't.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Um,
can we just recap on some of them then? Because, so the apartments out of, the commercial, no, the industrial zone.
Correct.
Okay.
Those were removed from industrial zone, but one of these specifics, and I can tell you which one it is. It's the Calkins, we refer to as the Methodist Hill commercial or office park. So it's from Calkins Road to Lehigh Station Road and from Methodist Hill to the 390. It's all developed out, large, almost all. It's where Paychex is. It's where my old company's located. There were still some farm fields. In fact, there were cows. I remember when we moved our office, I kept telling people there were cows. They didn't believe me. There were actually cows right in that field on West Henrietta Road. And so because of that, in theories, they could today come in and put apartment buildings there. We don't think that's an appropriate use. We pulled apartments out of industrial zone, but that specifics included apartment buildings. We didn't think that made sense.
Okay, so we're pulling them out of all the industrial though, not just that
They've already
area,
been pulled out of all the other industrial
except
zones,
for this one?
except for this
I
one,
see, okay.
because it had specifics. The base industrial code, it's gone. It's not allowed in there. We did that in 2019. But because this one, again, the problem is this section of code was not carried over to the new code book. And so it was forgotten when we pulled all of the instances of apartments out of industrial. We searched all the current code, we pulled out all instances, but because this one was over with the specifics in the old code book, it didn't get caught. So while we're bringing it over, rather than bring it over and then immediately change it, we're going to bring it over and change it at the same time. We're going to get rid of the what do you call it? The apartment buildings. So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to pull up the email that has the full list. I would have had it prepared, but I, for some reason, was thinking we were still calling for in my defense, our last town board meeting went 4.5 hours. So if I forgot that at that meeting, we called
Steve, I've got it. Do you want me to give you my computer?
You do? Yeah, that'd be great.
The local law number 12, is it the one you?
Does it have the list in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have the resolution or the law?
I pulled up the law. Do you want the
Yeah,
resolution?
I don't think the law has it. Yeah, but this resolution doesn't have the full list for some reason. I'm just gonna pull up what I had sent for specifics. Hold on. Yeah, in fact, I've got an issue with this. We may not be able to pass this tonight because I want those changes in there. I don't want anyone to say we brought those changes over and somehow I missed the fact they're not in 12-206 that I see. I don't know what happened to all those whereases. I missed the fact that they somehow got dropped. But I'll go through the other ones because we may be able to close the public hearing, or we'll have to put forth the other resolution. Hold on a second. I don't think what that date would be.
There's 2 1206s on here, but
Yeah. Well, wait, where do you see the other 1206?
there's one up above and then there's one further down. So there's zoning specific laws, then there's zoning specific maps, and then there's zoning specifics EAF 1, 2, and 3. And town board meeting information.
No, the map, in fact, while we're doing that, if, Jenny, if you could bring up the map that shows where these occur. Actually, let me search for Methodist because that's specifics appears in a lot
Just
of.
forwarded you what I think you're looking for, Steve.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, let me pull up the email. She did send it. So either we'll have to amend this resolution, but I'll go through all the changes. Okay, so for the Methodist Hill complex that we were talking about, that's the one where, like I said, it used to have multiple dwellings in the permitted use. We removed it from permitted use and added it to the prohibited use. In addition, in that same zone, it has what's called a north slope and a south slope.
Yeah, I'm still not really sure where you're talking. Not, I saw a cursor up here. Where's that cursor?
Hold on a second. I don't know that that has any charge left, unfortunately. You can try it, but it may have just timed out. So basically what you're looking at is any of the colored ones you're looking at, those are this zones that have specifics. So again, specifics mean they don't just follow the base rules. There are additional rules that apply for that particular zoning district. Okay, so the Methodist Hill, it's got a label of F13. Again, it's between Calkins Road and Lehigh, West Henrietta Road and I-390. So it looks like it's kind of a salmon color right in the middle of the map. We removed multiple dwellings. So in the old code, multiple dwellings was on the permitted list. We removed it from the permitted list and added it to the prohibited list. In addition, they talked about a they talked about basically a north slope and a south slope. They defined where the north slope starts. They then talked about the south slope, that it's any parcel that fronts Lehigh Station Road. The problem is if any of those are subdivided, which has happened, you now have parcels that are theoretically neither in the north slope or south slope. Since they fully define what the north slope is, I added the language that basically anything that's not a part of the north slope is part of the south slope. I also, again, this is still in Methodist Hill F13. They had a list of uses prohibited, but it was unclear as to whether it did or did not include the uses prohibited in industrial districts. I wanted to make it clear that you cannot have those uses there. So we added all uses prohibited in industrial districts by section 295-26. Again, that was implied, but when it's not clear, developers will try to wedge in and say, well, it doesn't say it's prohibited. We wanted to make it crystal clear.
So is that a B, I'm sorry, a B1 or a B2 or
Industrial.
industrial? Okay,
Yep. Okay, so that's all the ones for Methodist Hill.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more. For some reason under the one section in there, there was a requirement that the vegetation be evergreens. That's all that was allowed. We thought that's overly restrictive, so I changed it. I added the phrase or equivalent as approved by the planning board. So it just allows them, if right now, in theory, any of those trees in the buffer that aren't evergreens, they're technically illegal. That's silly. So I added that too.
Now, are you still talking about that orange?
That's
center?
all Methodist Hill.
Okay, not the yellow part.
No, so the next one I'm going to talk about is the West Hamlet Research Area. So this is the yellow one. This is what used to be the Delphi. We wanted to add that any buildings constructed within Henrietta's West Hamlet Historic District must have a facade that is consistent with the architecture of the district as approved by both the planning board and the Henrietta Historic Site Committee. So we want to put that restriction on there because for any future additions, now it's not for the whole parcel, because when you get all the way over by I-390, that's not part of the hamlet, but it stretches right into the hamlet. And so we haven't created the historic district yet, but it's in the process. And so we want to just have it in there so that anybody who comes in, and there is probably going to be an application in there soon, we just want to make sure that we can, through the full force of the code, require that their facade be consistent with the historic nature of the park. What's that? This is also industrial, yep. The next one. Was the planned unit development. So this is, it's the light blue, it's Riverton. When they created the planned unit development, they didn't include specifications such as line setbacks, dwelling types, floor space, lot occupancy, off-street parking, all the stuff that you see in every other residential district. All those restrictions are spelled out. The planning board in 1972 realized that that was never done, and they passed a resolution at the planning board setting up those specifics. The only place you can find them is in the minutes of the planning board from 1972. Needless to say, that's difficult to find. So I've brought those requirements over, and they will represent additional regulations. There's already a section under the plan unit development for additional regulations. Those will appear as 295-33 C7 through C11. So all those requirements for, like I said, setbacks, dwelling types, floor space, lot occupancy, and off-street parking, those will all be brought over from the planning board minutes into the town code so that it's more enforceable. Not that there's a whole lot of development left in the Riverton plan unit development, but there are still a few. And of course, someday in the future, somebody could buy a bunch of homes, knock them down, and want to build something different. So those are being brought over. And I will note that when we were bringing those planning criteria over, the front setback in the minutes, for some reason, they set it for 5 feet. That's, I don't know why. That's a really short front setback. We have never been implementing that. If you look at it, we've been implementing a 30-foot setback. Okay, we're talking about in the future going to a 35-foot setback. But again, I've been trying to bring these over largely as they are today and as we've been implementing them. So when I bring it over, I'm switching it from 5 foot that's in the minutes to 30 foot, which has been in practice. And that's it. So again, most of these were industrial zones. The rest are so any of the other ones, they're just coming over as they are today. Those are the only ones that actually have changes. And also, just to be clear, so again, the large industrial complex that's in the light purple up at the top, a lot of that had to do with the only restrictions there primarily had to do with when they created those districts, they donated land to the town for parks, and there can be no egress or ingress through the park to the industrial district. So that's a requirement. It's not one that is likely to be violated, but it's there. We wanted to capture it. Let me bring up that map so I can make sure I hit all the other ones.
The part about being 30 or 35 feet from the
front setback. So
front
that's from the-
setback, is that for all in industry?
No,
Now, is that gonna be for all or just this
industry
size?
has a much larger setback. Industry
Okay,
is
so-
like 125 feet. This is for residential.
Oh, this is for residential.
And it's specifically, that is specifically for the Riverton planned unit development.
Okay.
Let's see what other ones were there. So the one that's labeled D14, so it's the area, it's south of Marketplace Mall, west side of the railroad tracks, same thing. Now, that's all largely wetland, so I don't know that it's ever going to get developed, but that's the green one. To the south of that is a parcel that was donated to the land that's off of St. Patrick Drive. It makes clear that if that D14 is ever developed as commercial, that there can be no egress or ingress through that parcel on St. Patrick's Drive. So there was some on Facebook, someone talked about, wouldn't it be great to extend Marketplace Drive out to Henrietta Road, West Henrietta Road, and everybody who lived in the St. Patrick's development said, no, it wouldn't be great. We don't want it coming through our neighborhood. This zoning district actually prohibits that. By law, they would not be able, if someone ever, again, I don't know why they would do it because so much of it's wetlands, but if someone ever decided to extend Marketplace Drive out to West Henrietta Road, there could not be any connection to the residential neighborhood to the south. The Marketplace Mall, that included specifics about the creation of the planned commercial district, which has happened, but again, it includes some restrictions as far as where stuff can go. I've already mentioned the salmon colored one, the big F8.
There's a lot of activity at that Marketplace Mall, right? So can you be a little more specific as to what that is, those changes?
There's no changes to Marketplace Mall. This is code that's already existing. We're just bringing it over.
Oh, you're just bringing it over.
Yeah, I listed all the changes. I'm just telling you what the other districts are. And then there are the districts along East Henrietta Road. And again, most of those have to do with restrictions about site plan requirements and or additional uses that either are allowed or prohibited. Again, they're coming straight over, so I don't remember off the top of my head, although I could find that out from the local law if anyone's really curious.
I actually am.
Figured. Okay, so from Wright Road to Calkin Road, they add permitted uses include medical centers, office buildings, banks, professional buildings, and any other business or commercial use not specifically enumerated herein and not specifically prohibited. And then it gives the two sections of code where prohibited may be allowed upon obtaining a special use permit. Prohibited uses include all uses prohibited in either a B1 or a B2 commercial district. And then there is additional considerations. A visual screen buffer between commercial and residential will be established along the western boundary. It has to be reviewed by the planning board. And curb cuts to the rezoned area will be limited to those presently provided by the New York State Road and Sidewalk System. Then from Calkins to Castle Road, no building permit shall be issued for buildings or structures in any part of the premises described in Exhibit A. So that's that area on the map. Unless and until applicant shall have first submitted to the planning board of the town of Henrietta and obtained the approval of such board of site plans with reference to building locations, landscaping, lighting, parking, drainage, construction, and remodeling. In no event shall parking be permitted in the rear of any building. So again, that's one, because of it backs up to residential properties. They didn't want parking in the back of the building, and they wanted to make sure any thing that came in there had to go through full planning board approval. So those are all the commercial ones along East Henrietta Road. Okay,
So that's all the changes then?
those aren't changes. That's what's there today.
Okay.
The only changes are the changes I listed initially. There aren't a whole lot of changes.
Okay.
Again, these.
So you're saying that's just coming over from the
It's
other.
coming over
people.
from the old code book. It all
Okay.
existed. It was still in force today. It's just you couldn't find, if you went on to Eco 360, you could not find these things. And that's what I
Okay.
want to fix.
Okay.
So if, if a developer's looking, they'll know what's coming. If a resident is saying, well, what's allowed there, they'll be able to figure it out. It just, today, you have to have a magic code book, for lack of a better way to put it. There were only a couple copies. You had to know who to ask to get that information. That's just not the way it should be. It should be public. So I wanted to make sure that was corrected. As I said, there were a few minor changes that I wanted to bring over. I listed each and every one of those changes.
Okay.
I would like to, Joe, I think you're going to be the one to move this. I would like to include the whereas clauses. I will-
Supervisor, I updated the resolution.
Oh, you did?
Just now. Yep. So I
Perfect.
sent it back to you and Jenny. I can actually
Forward it to Joe, since he's the one who has to put it forth, I believe.
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah, so I want those, whereas, they're just whereas clauses. They just go through in detail the changes that I just read to you. Because again, I don't want some future developer saying, oh, you snuck those in when you moved it over. No, we're not sneaking it in. We're fully spelling out what we've changed. But
Okay.
now, like I said, the things I didn't describe in those changes were Town Code Section 2295-15 in the old book is 295-16 in the new book. I didn't bother. We just updated to the right numbers, but
Okay.
Don, do you want to just send that out to the rest of the board as well, so we can just look at it when we vote to approve it? Thank you so much.
And all of these are online too as well,
they
right?
are all online. Yes,
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
you bet. Any,
What?
reply to an older email. Any other questions, comments? Come on up.
Tyler Keller, 1063 Erie Station Road. I just had a question on the F14, the Western or West Hamlet research area. Supervisor Schultz, you had mentioned that the former Delphi parcel, now it's been subdivided into separate, that's
It's part of that same parcel. I'm just saying, when you guys create this hamlet, I doubt you're going to bring it all the way over to 390.
if I wanted to be really nitpicky, I could say that parcel fronts part of the hamlet,
It fronts what?
part of the historic hamlet, based
Where?
off the bounds.
What, again, it's not what, it doesn't matter where the parcel sits. It's wherever you guys draw the boundaries. It's with what's in that boundaries is the way we wrote it.
Okay.
So I, for one, wouldn't support an historic district, including an interstate highway, because that's not very historic. So, but again, it doesn't matter where they front, whatever. It's if the building is within the boundaries of the historic hamlet, they have to have a historic facade on the building.
And then with regard to the prohibited uses, I'm not seeing anything in there for, so for example, if that large industrial building they're going to put in, a huge concern was the amount of semi-traffic that would be coming in and out of the district.
Right.
That's not spelled out in black and white in this, but
It's, again, this is just what's in the code today. When that district was created, what you're seeing in that section is what was in there today. I'm not looking to make massive changes. But that's, again, part of why there is a special use permit process where we basically, and a seeker process, where we look and say, okay, if there's a potential adverse impact, such as from the traffic to the intersection, we can address that. And again, if you'll notice, that application was withdrawn because there were too many problems with it. So, but that's the type of stuff you typically do not find in the code itself for the district. Again, that's to be addressed as part of the seeker and special use permit project.
So Supervisor, this part that's talking about the F14 number 3, any buildings constructed within the West Henrietta Hamlet Historic District must have a facade. Is that the issue that we're addressing?
That's the one that I'm adding. That
Mhm.
was not there originally.
Okay,
The other stuff was all there originally.
does that satisfy?
That wasn't really part of my question, I guess.
So again, for instance, when you get, if you look at the old Delphi building, that's way over by the thruway or the 390, I don't picture that being, I don't know exactly where you're going to draw the boundaries, but I think you would be hard pressed to convince me that that's part of the historic district. But certainly the part that was subdivided out, and certainly the part that exits onto, again, whether it exits onto Jefferson, or excuse me, West Henrietta Road, whether it exits onto Erie Station Road, doesn't matter. If that building is at all inside that boundaries, it's going to have that facade.
My last question was secret related, but I think you already answered that with saying that just kind of goes along with anything further with the special use permit, correct?
You lost me there. Say that again.
So I just want to know if there's anything we could do kind of additionally of seeker, if that could be worked in at all.
If we were going to do that, I would want to do it as a standalone. I wouldn't want to make it part of this.
Okay, can you give a reason behind that? Can you elaborate or?
Yeah,
now, or-
because I don't like where you pack. I don't like when Congress does it. I don't like when Albany does it. I don't like where you take a whole bunch of unrelated legislation, put it all into one bill and it's all pass or fail. If we're going to add those specifics, additional specifics to this area beyond that one that like I said, I think is applicable because I know we're going to be creating this district. If we're going to try to impose additional restrictions above and beyond that, that should stand on its own 2 feet. It should stand on its own merits. I don't want to hold up this law and bringing these things over to add those qualifications, right? It's just like with a lot of the stuff, you know, we've had multiple changes to the same section of, you know, to the zoning code. We didn't do it all at once because they were covering different topics. Each thing that we've been adding, we do it as a separate, so it stands on its own. It passes or fails on its own. I don't like it where, well, yeah, Joe and Rick are for this thing, and maybe, you know, Millie and I are for something else, and Joe and Lisa are for something, and none of them would get more than 2 votes. But if you put them all together, you get it passed. You're not doing justice to the legislative system, in my opinion. If what you're asking for is going to pass or fail, it should pass or fail on its own, not because it's part of something else that we have to bring over. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So if you've got ideas that you would love to see added there, you can bring it forth. You know, again, so one of the things I will say, you asked for additional seeker. Once that historic district is created, that absolutely opposes additional seeker requirements. So for instance, you know, I'm pretty sure any development inside the seeker automatically bumps up to a higher level of action. Do you know that, Don?
There are some provisions in seeker that do bump up their classification status based on whether they're within or contiguous to a historic district.
Right. So some seeker stuff will be automatic just as soon as you guys designate that district. If there's additional stuff that you want to see implemented, so it would make sense then if it's additional requirements related to the district, when we create that district, let's bring those over. The only reason I want to get this one in now is because I know we've had a previous application in there. I suspect there is going to be another application coming. The biggest issue I want to be able to drive home is, from that standpoint, is that facade. Because when you look at all the other development that's happened in that area, they have put consistent facades on. So I want to be able to have something to stand by. You know, now I realize the district isn't going to be created yet, but one of the things I can say to them is, look, we know this district is coming. Either you can meet that requirement or we can postpone this until we're done creating the district, right? Type of thing. I just want to have that ability, because a large imposing building with a modern looking facade just would not, it would be completely out of place there.
Correct.
So that's the big one. If there's other changes, let's do that when we're putting in the district itself.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
you bet. And just so everyone knows, I have spoken to the developer about that. I want that facade and he's okay with it. I just want it there in case, I don't want him to be able to change his mind. Any other questions or comments on this proposed local law? Then I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed local law to include conditions pertaining to specific zoning districts and zoning code. Finally, we have the proposed local public hearing for the proposed local law to implement New York's stretch energy code in the town of Henrietta. Don't know if you would like to present, but before you do, I'll just give you guys an update so you know. So one of the things, this is a stretch code basically is pushes or increases some of the requirements for some of the energy code. It mostly affects new home builds and commercial builds. The issue I have, so we're looking at implementing it. The issue I have is I don't want it to kick in immediately. I want it to kick in sometime in the future. There's an incentive currently out there from NYSERDA for $50,000 if we implement that before June 30th. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't just mean adopting the code. It means that it has to take effect. I am not okay with it taking effect that fast. That's not fair to developers that in 21 days, they have to suddenly meet all new codes. I did speak with our NYSERDA liaisons, I guess you would call them. NYSERDA is considering extending it. I did hear from one of them who said, can I share your letter with NYSERDA because they need to understand, he's a builder himself. He said, you're absolutely right. This would be catastrophic for builders to suddenly, somebody's basically got a down payment for a new house and now they have to change everything because it has to meet the new codes. That's not fair to the builder. It's not fair to the homeowner. And so we want to have a future date. We're not actually going to act on this one today because I don't have that future date. So NYSERDA is considering extending it. They think it's going to be through November 30th because I'd like to push the date as far into the year as possible, but still be inside the date in order to get the incentives. So they were not able to get that answer back from me today, but we'll have the public hearing. I do want Pat to speak. But like I said, we're not going to be enacting this today. We actually have, again, the deadline for some of this was the 30th. So we have one more meeting to go where we can enact this. But I want to have in there, right now it says, the law says that it takes effect immediately. I am not, for one, comfortable doing that. That's an unfair burden to developers. So again, I want to have it, hopefully that it takes effect, November 29th, whatever we pick, inside that date. But I want to get confirmation because I would hate to pick the 30th and then we get confirmation back tomorrow that the date is the 15th, November 15th. June 30th is when the original cutoff date is. It's not definite, but again, if they're not changing it, I'm giving up the 50,000 because I'm not going to, as I put, I'm not going to let the cart pull the horse. I am interested in putting the code in there. As with any of these stuff, I don't want to introduce a hardship to the residents, to the builders. When you actually look at it, so the additional cost for a new home, you're probably looking at a couple $1,000s in terms of cost. When that's part of a mortgage spread out over 20 or 30 years, it's negligible. But to make to somebody who's already got a deal on the table and they've already gone out and gotten mortgage approval, but they haven't pulled a building permit yet, well, tomorrow they would have to meet the new codes. They'd have to change out windows and or insulation. It's just not, it's not right. It's not the right thing to do. If we give builders a deadline and say the new code is going to take November 15th for any, you know, if you haven't pulled your building permit by then, it's going to be under the new code. Well, then they know if they got something in the works, they can pull the building permit prior to that. If it's not in the works, they'll know that, well, when you're talking to people, if you don't have a commitment yet, make sure they know it's going to be under the new thing. The other thing I will add, whereas it will add some amount to that cost, it's actually going to reduce people's energy costs. The crossover, why don't you come on up and tell, because I don't remember the exact, but it's a short number of years for the payback. I think it was like, what, 7 years or
Hi,
maybe
I'm
longer?
Pat Wordinger from Windeland Drive here in Henrietta, and I'm also chairperson of the Sustainability Committee for the town of Henrietta. So my job is to find ways that we can do green initiatives. And here's one I found that's incredible. It requires more stringent energy building, building more efficient homes and more carefully. So it's going to save the builder, the homeowner, lots of money. And it's estimates about, let's see, they'll save 10 to 12% in energy costs over each year. And then the money they've invested will be paid back within 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And the comfort is wonderful in the homes. For video I watched about this program, it had building officials who said, yeah, we got a few builders who complained about the extra costs, but then after 3 months, we didn't get any complaints because the homeowners were saving money and they were raving about how nice it felt inside the homes. So here in Henrietta, you are going to be the first town in this county to do this. And it's because you are striving to do the right things, the green things, the things that are better for the community. And this is one that benefits the homeowner who builds a house that'll be future-proofed. The cost of natural gas is only going upwards. There's another proposal in another way that I think would be really cool to use, would be saying no natural gas pipelines to any home. This does not say that. This is just having home energy efficiency and better windows, things like that. And one more thing, it wants an outlet for EV car charging in the future. You don't have to have the actual charger, but you have to have in your
You don't actually even have
box.
to have the outlet. You have to have the watt amperage reserved in your circuit box, and you
Right.
have to have a path to get to the garage. So if it's not easy to connect, you know, let's say that they could run a conduit through the wall if it's going to be, for instance, a poured concrete wall separating the house, or if it's a detached garage, it would be a conduit out to the attached garage. But you don't actually have to have the wire in, you don't have to have the circuit in, you don't have to have the connector in. It just has to be so that it's easy to install going forward. As someone who has built to these higher standards, I can tell you the comfort is absolutely noticeable. You know, when the weather changes, it takes a long time before we ever have to put on air conditioning, because when it cools down at night, you know, basically the house maintains temperature extremely well. Our heating and cooling costs for the size of my house, if you've seen my house, it is on the larger size. I spend less to heat and cool that house than I did my old house, which was half the square footage. So it does make a big difference. The savings are real. So like I said, the thing is, for the new home builders, when it's that additional couple $1,000 cost is spread out over the life of the mortgage, they'll actually pay less per month or per year because their fuel costs will be lowered immediately. So the payback from a mortgage standpoint is day one. Now the thing is, what we're going to have to do is have material to educate the builders. So when the builders are selling these houses, yeah, they're going to be a couple $1,000s more, but they can talk about, here's the additional energy savings you're going to get. So it's going to be lower costs when you move in here. And that goes back to Pat's comment about why when they started to do that, all the complaints went away because all the homeowners were like, wow, these are great houses. So
Yep.
it does make a difference.
The one thing I would like to ask is if you could consider saying, okay, houses that have gone through the permit process already, those houses are exempt, but people who come with a new permit at the start of a new permit, that's when they will be.
That's
met-
when those
meet with
codes,
us.
that's when they kick in anyways. We don't
Mhm.
have to state that.
Right.
When you
okay.
pull the building permit, it's whatever the current codes are current when you pull the permit.
Okay, thank you. And the last thing I'm going to say is,
Well, I just want to say, Millie had a question
oh,
for you.
yes? Okay.
I would just, what is the deadline for this?
They have an incentive built in for if we could get it, the adoption of a resolution, and they give us a proposed adoption, and maybe we can add a little clause in
Well,
there
so let
about
me answer.
November.
The date is June 30th
Okay.
to put the resolution in. Now, to get the full incentive today, the way it reads is that we would have to have it take effect by June 30th. We're not going to do that. There's a lot of people who've been pushing back on NYSERDA about
exactly.
that.
I
And so
agree.
they are expecting that they will extend that it can be, you can have the resolution in by the 30th, but the active date, the inactive date can be, and like I said,
months down the road.
initially what they're talking about is November 30th.
Okay.
But he wanted to confirm that, because again, I would hate to put in the law that it's November 30th, and then we find out it's November 15th and we miss out. So until we get the confirmation, we'll have it by next meeting. So that's why I'd like to hold a public hearing. We'll close the public hearing.
Thank you.
But I want to modify I want to set that date for when the new code takes effect, based off of what we get back from NYSERDA. The one other thing I will add is that what this does have in here is for remodels. So if I am doing, I'm adding an extension and I have to meet the new code, there is an ability, if somebody can show that they have hardship, they can't meet the additional costs, or there's a legitimate reason why they can't meet the new codes it's only for remodels. They can't do this for new home builds. But for remodels, they can go to the zoning board of appeals and request that they not have to meet the stretch code requirements. They of course still have to meet the New York State energy codes. You can't get out of that. But basically, if you think about it, the energy codes are here, the stretch codes are up here. The appeals process lets them bring it back down to the code. That's only for remodels, because again, when you look at this, and we did it, that was optional as to whether we put it in there. We chose to put it in there because again, we're not trying to create hardships. There are some people who save up just enough money to do that improvement. Now, with that said, a lot of times you'll see the difference is $30 a window, $50 a window. So for a remodel, it's not going to be the thousands of dollars, it's going to be the hundreds of dollars. But if for some reason someone really can't pay that, and I will point out to them that make sure that the amount you're saving is greater than the cost to apply for a variance. But if they really can't afford that, they have an ability to get out of that requirement. Because again, we're trying to push people to be, greener, but we don't want to impose any hardships.
So will we be tabling this tonight or just not? putting
Correct.
the
Well,
resolution
we're just
forward?
not going to enact it. We knew this was a chance, so I was hoping to get the answer, but he
I
could
didn't
not
get it yet.
confirm it by
No.
meeting time. So that's why it's the last resolution. We're just not going to put it forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will say that when I was doing new construction, it was when all the Energy Star rated homes were coming out. And so we had a little bit of time where we could present them to buyers coming in. We might have had like 6 months. So we would say, this is our price. This is, if you will, Energy Star rated. This is the additional amount. And the closer we got to it, more people were going with it because they finally understood it. So it's really educating people, and they will have a tendency to go to it because they see the savings overall. But it's just,
Yep.
waking them up.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Lisa.
Thank you.
Any other input from the public? Come on up.
Ms. Lois. Yeah, I just have one. So you know how you said about the STAR program that you had many different companies you could buy those products from. Does this program that you're talking about limit to just one company that you're buying from? It
Not
doesn't.
at all.
Okay. so-
Anderson, all the window, well, I shouldn't say all the window companies. Any of the major window companies have the higher rated windows.
Okay, so it doesn't limit.
No,
Okay,
it's
that's,
Pella, Anderson, Colonial, you name it. There might be some fly-by-night replacement window folks that don't meet the higher code, but any of the other ones absolutely do. And I mean, to be clear, a lot of those ones that, you know, if you go and look at the hardware store and look at what the thermal rating is for those windows and understand that that's where the vast amount of your energy loss is through your windows. If you do any looking into that, you're going to go with the higher rated windows, even without this code in
so
place.
is that basically what we're talking about then? Is just the windows?
It's windows, it's a little bit more insulation. So
Insulation.
yeah, but mostly in the ceiling, in the, or, you know, the attic.
And
there-
that would just be, part of the code, right?
That's part of the code. That's
Yeah.
it. So
Okay.
it doesn't specify a specific product. You know, what I did for mine, so we went with the thicker walls and we did, you know, 2 inches of spray foam, and then we just did batting inside of that because spray foam is a little bit more expensive, but it creates a nice air barrier.
Mhm.
Beyond that 2 inches, you're just paying extra for nothing. Because once you've got that air barrier, the pink batting is really no worse than the foam. The thing that the pink batting doesn't get you is that initial barrier. So there's multiple ways to, what I'm getting at is there's multiple ways to achieve those higher ratings. In my basement, I use Superior walls. They're a great product. Our basement, we've had 0 issues in terms of wetness and, you know, so like I said, there's a lot of different products out there, and not just products, but there are different ways to achieve the higher ratings. There's not one solution that fits all. All it's saying is I need to, you know, when you look at it under the current code, it's a combination. They look at the amount of energy lost through the ceiling, through the walls, through the windows, and you have to meet a particular threshold. This requires you to meet a higher threshold. There's a bunch of different ways to solve it. I'm not explaining it 100% correct. I'm not an energy guy, but it's kind of give you an idea. If the gentleman in the back can explain it even better, you're welcome to. Okay, he says I'm doing a fine job.
Okay, so my other question is, like you were saying about the cost, the additional cost that would do, because I went and did all my windows again, and that was really quite expensive to do that. So how does,
So again,
if I'm doing
it
that
wouldn't-
plus the walls?
It would never require somebody to do the updates. You wouldn't be required to put in new windows.
Yeah.
What it's saying is if you build in an addition to your house, that addition would be required to have the new windows. You're going to have to put new windows in there anyways because you're building it from new. The difference is instead of using the lower R value, I would have to use a higher R value window
Yeah.
so that I have less energy loss. So
Yeah.
again, that cost, when you look at the price between the two different models, again, it's, you know, less than 100 or, you know, 1 to 200, depending, it totally depends on the size of the window, right?
Yeah.
But for an average window, you're probably looking at $100 more per window, maybe.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, nothing in here requires people to update their current house. It's just saying if I'm building a new house or I'm adding a new addition, remodeling my old house
Okay.
to where, in other words, if your remodel is just interior and I'm not replacing windows, doesn't affect you. If you're going to replace the windows, you would have to replace them with the more energy efficient ones. That's all.
Even with the
Which you
existing
may have
house.
already done.
Which I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that one? Anything online? I don't even know if there's anyone. There is someone online?
I have a couple online, yes.
Great.
Peter, you are up first.
Yes, well, I would like to speak in favor of the stretch energy code, though I certainly understand delaying the implementation for a while. And it's after 9 o'clock, so I'm not going to repeat all the good discussion and arguments that have already been made. But I think the point of a building code or an energy code is really to kind of protect the homeowners from getting a substandard building. And I think as energy costs go up, and we know they're going up, they're going to keep going up. I think as they go up, what's currently acceptable is going to, in 5 or 10 or 15 years, be seen as substandard. So I think it makes sense to boost the energy code. And again, the cost up front is going to be offset by the savings in energy. And it's a lot easier and cheaper to do this stuff up front because I have an older home and I'm gradually doing the energy efficiency improvements in it. And it's harder and it's more expensive than doing it right up front. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you. I will also note that probably 3 to 4 years out, I wouldn't be surprised if what's currently stretch code becomes the New York base energy code. So we're kind of getting ahead of it a little bit, which will, again, to the online person's comments, will help our residents because again, the reason for that is exactly what he's talking about with rising energy costs, and costs not just from a dollar standpoint, but the costs on the environment. Getting ahead of that, reducing the amount, the less energy you can use, not only helps your wallet, it helps the environment as well. So thank you. And was there a second person online?
Yes.
Josh Stack.
Oh, good.
Hello, this is Josh Stack, the NYSERDA stretch rider for your community. And I just wanted to jump in quickly. I know it's after 9, but just confirm the accuracy of everything discussed to date, but also just clarify one point on the variances in the interpretation. Would not be just existing houses, but the variances would apply to any New York stretch provision that that modifies the energy code.
So that the way we wrote it though, I thought we wrote it that it was not available for new houses. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
So it could be limited to existing houses, but the Department of State takes the position that a local community that adopts stretch can issue variances and interpretations on any New York stretch provision for either new or existing construction.
Gotcha. Yeah. You're right.
It doesn't distinguish between
Yeah.
whether you're
You know, I
updating
saw
or-
the modification and I was thinking I was talking about a remodel.
Gotcha.
You're right. Yep.
That's what we wanted it to be more open, right?
It is more open, although I will also say in the legislative intent, so this is a note to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I think the standard that a builder of a new home is going to need to show, especially if it's a developer who's building lots of new homes, that's got to be a higher standard than, from a legislative intent standpoint, that's got to be a higher standard than somebody who is a private homeowner, either building their own house or doing an remodel or an expansion on their current house. I just, when you look at it again, the slight additional cost for a new home, when that's covered in the cost of the home and spread out over that initial mortgage, you're going to see a savings immediately. If for a lot of other individuals, they're not necessarily taking a loan out to build that expansion there. They're basically doing it with money they've saved up. So that's the only thing I'll say is that I want the variances in there more for the private homeowner than I do for the developer. I don't know if that can or can't be taken into it, but it's now at least in the record. And anyway. Do you have anything else to add, Josh?
No, other than all the other information was, I think accurate and, really fantastic points. As a builder, I agree with all of it. That's been our experience to build the New York stretch as a small incremental first cost, if that. And it does produce a more comfortable, energy efficient, healthy home that clients can, feel noticeably the difference in. So I'll keep it at that because I know it's 20 after 9, but certainly available to answer any other questions. But I think everything presented today is very accurate with the experience to stretch to date, and anything with a more strict or more stringent local energy code. The benefits are really undeniable.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further input? Any other questions, comments from the board? Is there anyone else, going back to the board, that I expressed my opinion as far as the variance? I don't know if anybody else disagrees with that or agrees with that, you know, let's get it on the record now. So when the zoning, you know, again, I believe that the zoning board can look at that when they.
I don't think this zoning board is going to refer back to the minutes of today. So if we want to.
Oh, I'll bring it to his attention.
What I will say is the variance says that the variance provision does provide that any variance or modification shall provide for alternative energy conservation standards or requirements to achieve, to the extent practicable, the purposes of this energy code. And that variance application shall identify specific sections to be varied and provide a brief description of the relief requested, and the alternative energy conservation standards, which are proposed to be provided to compensate. So I don't know if that helps to alleviate any of your concerns, but it sort of makes them take that extra step in terms of what are you going to do if we let you off the hook here? How are you going to compensate?
Sure. So I don't know how others feel. Like I said, I just, like I said,
Common sense.
I just don't, I want to have an ability for someone who that the code could create a hardship to get out of it. I sincerely doubt that's the case. I doubt there'll be a whole lot of variances requested. I really do, because again, I suspect for a remodel, the cost of the variance is equal to the additional cost of the window, right? So you might as well buy the better window. We'll see. Okay, anything else? And hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed local law to implement New York Stretch Energy Code in the town of Henrietta. Okay, can I get my third resolution?
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-196, 2022, to authorize bills payable for June 3rd, 2022 through today, June 9th, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolster.
Aye.
Councilmember Page.
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 12-197, 2022, to declare intent to be lead agency for a coordinated seeker review of the proposed Marriott Suites Hotel on Kenneth Drive.
Seconded.
Any discussion? And I will note that that meeting is, because we'll be in the summer where we're 3 weeks between meeting, it'll be 35 days away, so we'll be all set. Any further discussion or comments? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Aye.
Councilmember Page.
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-198, 2022, to call for a public hearing to consider conveying lands to the town of Henrietta per New York State Town Law 278 for the Lehigh Ridge subdivision.
Second. So that we provided an additional color map to make it easier to spot which were the ones lands being conveyed. As you can see now, obviously a large chunk of that's under the power lines. one of the things I want to take a look at, I want to actually reach out to NIMO. One of the things let me say before I do that, does it make sense for us to maintain that land going forward, or does it make sense for Niagara Mohawk to maintain that land? I don't know. That's something we can decide, but the point is it can be donated to us first. And if we decide that we don't want to maintain it, we can look at turning it over to Niagara Mohawk since it's under their high voltage power lines. I just don't know that we want to.
That's a lot of
It's a
property
lot
that
of
we
property to
can-
mow that, or I don't know that we'd have to mow it. But see, I think what has to happen is you have to brush hog it to prevent trees from growing.
Mhm.
I'd rather put that onus on Niagara Mohawk than
Right.
on us. Now, if in talking with them, they're gonna do that anyway, then I don't care if we own it, as long as they're the ones doing the brush hogging. I just don't want to have to put that burden on our grounds crews. So,
But they probably just own a certain amount of footage either side of the power line,
it's
right?
300 feet, if I remember correctly, is the width of the easement. In some places, they actually own the parcel, in some places it's an easement. So,
Yeah, I think.
but I'm gonna investigate that, because like I said, my thing is I don't want us to take on that burden of keeping trees from growing.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? I'll hopefully have that answer before the public hearing.
Great.
Okay.
Hearing nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
All right,
It's yours.
yeah. It's all right, gotta scroll.
Yeah.
Fellow board members, I have resolution 12-199, 2022 to call for a public hearing to update the zoning code with respect to relaxing limitations on uniformity of dwelling types in a subdivision.
Second.
So again, what that just simply means is somewhere there's a portion of our code that basically requires you can't have more than 30% of any one dwelling type, for example, raised ranch, split level, Cape Cod, so forth. That restriction makes no sense. Instead, we want to change it to where it basically says that there's either a change in dwelling types or a change in floor plans sufficient that it doesn't create a overly uniform or monotonous neighborhood. So it just didn't make sense to, like I said, to keep that burden in there. It just doesn't make any sense. Most modern developments, they're typically, again, fairly consistent in terms of dwelling types. They just modify the floor plans, shift things forward and back, change, add gables and dormers and things like that to vary the appearance so it doesn't look cookie cutter. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-200/2022 to authorize a special attention detail program with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
Seconded.
So you have the current version of the IMA. Don is working with the town or with the county attorney to Monroe County Sheriff Attorney, I should say, to finalize that. But obviously, if there is any kind of substantial deviation from what we're looking at today, we would come back for reapproval. If it stays in its current form, this current approval would be enough. I will also note that I've reached out to try to get next year's number. To me, it doesn't change a thing, but I just want to be clear that 146,678 per year is for the 2022 salary year. I'm sure I don't know at 100%, but I'm fairly certain that in their union contract, their wages will go up in 2023. And so, you know, in the way we wrote the way I wrote this is that the cost for the remainder of the minimum 1 year will be included in the budget for 2023. So we'll have that number before we do the budgeting. But again, I expect there's going to be more. The amount from this year's budget is going to be under $100,000. Now, what Linda, you know, will do is that 146,678. She said she can basically essentially encumber that. So it locks it up going forward. But again, we're going to have to see an increase because of, we'll get what the numbers are for next year's. I also expect that their vehicle service costs are going to go up because fuel's more expensive. Parts aren't, you know, everything with regards to maintaining a vehicle is more expensive. So, but again, we'll have a chance to approve that as part of our budget. So.
So, you know, again, I appreciate having the starting targeted list of some areas that we'd like to emphasize. And I think the other thing that probably should happen over the course of this year that we're in this trial period, that we have some sort of evaluation.
Absolutely.
On the effectiveness.
So one of the things that we're going to be working and putting in place, you know, before we started is what the procedure is going to be internally for how we generate that list. I expect it to be shared with the town board. I don't expect it to require it to be constantly approved by the town board. But that way the town board's aware of it. And if there is something that you guys see that we should be doing differently, in other words, you'll have input to the process, but it doesn't make sense to me to have that list require a town board resolution every time.
No.
But that you guys would have input as to part of the process. So obviously if people come to you and say, hey, this thing's great, but could you also add my neighborhood to the list? Or can, you know, like Millie brought up that I forgot from the initial list, the dirt bikes, right? Around this time of year, you're going to start to get complaints from all the dirt bikes and the four-wheelers. You know, so that's one of the areas in the trial period, we actually had them do that and they were successful in terms of they did apprehend 2 individuals who were riding motorized. I don't remember if they were the dirt bikes or the four-wheelers, but on the Lehigh Valley Trail. So excuse me. So like I said, I absolutely agree. The other thing we'll be putting in place is how we're going to do that evaluation.
Yeah.
And some of that's going to be in conjunction, you know, with discussions with the sheriff office for the evaluation, because obviously that requires them coming back to us.
I think there's a monthly report built into it.
There is, but like I said, I want to dive into that.
Yeah.
Into what that is and what type of things we're going to look. What we'll probably do as we get closer, we'll have the captain come speak at a workshop that says, you know, here's what we're doing. And that way you guys have a chance to get input as to what exact, you know, because one of the things that gets back to this is what is the measure of success?
Right.
Right. You know, in terms of, is it more tickets for speeding in residential neighborhoods? Well, again, really, the goal isn't necessarily more tickets. The goal is to reduce the amount of speeding.
Right.
The problem is we have no idea what that metric is today, other than people saying it's horrible, right? So
Well,
I
we
mean,
do
some of
have
that's going to
the-
be, if you will, community feedback saying, hey, I've seen a difference. There's fewer speeders going through my residential neighborhood.
Right, yes. So some of it will be the reflection of the community on whether they feel safer.
Right.
But also we do have those signs.
Correct.
Which we've used in the past to identify speeding zones. So, you know, after there's a little bit of time maybe where there is the special detention detail in that specific area, we could again use
Sure.
the sign to determine if maybe there are fewer speeders, hopefully.
Right. Oh, good idea. Any other questions, comments? And hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranic,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-201, 2022, to authorize the purchase of a slide-in salter for the highway department.
Second.
So again, this is a great approach from the highway department. It's actually going to save us money to not have to replace the dump body on this truck. And not only that, but when we do eventually end of life this truck, the slide-in salter will actually slide into the new truck. So that's one of the things we've been doing in terms of we've been not buying trucks that have the built-in salters. We've been buying them with more standard dump bodies, which make them more useful the rest of the year. And then we can do the slide-in salter to make them useful during the plowing operation.
Yep.
So I think it's a great solution. And like I said, we'll save the town money. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 12-202, 2022, to ratify the emergency and sole source purchase of a 3/4 ton pickup truck for use by Department of Public Works personnel.
Seconded.
So again, we got notified. So all of the stuff through the New York State mini bid process, they come in, they're essentially sold out before they even begin. We've been having a very hard time finding trucks available. We were notified by Capolino, who is one of our suppliers, typically through the mini bid, that Chevrolet was going to make a bunch available. So we did get our order in. We are on the list for Capolino. What we don't know is whether Chevrolet is going to fulfill all the orders. If they fulfill Capolino's orders, we'll get one. If they don't, we won't. But from a supply chain standpoint, trucks have been incredibly hard to get a hold of.
It's out of your control.
Yeah, so as I said at the workshop, we're gonna follow this up with, we'll do instead of the OGS mini bids, which haven't been working, we're gonna do for the other truck, we're gonna do a standard bid out to any dealer, see if we get something. Even if we don't, that then gives us more flexibility in the future with regards to reacting quickly if one does become available. So it's one of the things I hate, that we become so dependent on, especially China, with regards to computer chips. I think that's I don't like to get into national politics, and I'm not blaming any party. I just think that's been a mistake over the years, that we've allowed ourselves to become dependent on foreign entities, especially foreign entities who aren't always, shall we say, friends of the United States. So hopefully someone will come along and start to rectify that, but we'll see. Any other comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 12-203, 2022, to make budget adjustments per the 2022 adopted budget.
Second. Any questions? Again, this is largely, we got the CHIPS money came in almost double of what we had budgeted for. So they had originally talked about cutting it back and they didn't. So that's great. Hearing no further comments, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 12-204, 2022, to hire personnel per the attached.
Second.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, you had mentioned something about another code enforcement, but that's not on this.
It may not be on this. Linda
Okay.
sent me a correction. It's on the next one, I think.
Okay, fantastic.
I just got ahead of myself because I know she's had a successful week in terms of people accepting, but I couldn't remember who's on which. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow town board members, I have resolution number 12-205/2022 to appeal Barbary Cove tax assessment litigation.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow town board members, I have resolution number 12-206/2022 to issue a negative declaration and adopt local law number 12 of 2022 to approve local law to codify zoning conditions and specifics.
Second.
I will just say that one got a lot more scrutiny at the public hearing than I was really expecting. I wasn't expecting to have to go through each and every one, but hey, that's their right as residents. Like I said, I think this is important because you can't find that information and it should be out there. So
Yeah.
it's true. Any further comments? And hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. That concludes our resolutions because we will not be acting on resolution 12-207. That'll push out till next meeting. Do we have any public discussion? Comments from the public?
Yes, Kevin Yost, 1474 Middle Road. Good evening. Before I talk about what I was going to talk about, just a couple comments on a couple resolutions, discussions. First of all, I mentioned Niagara Mohawk and Niagara, that company is now National Grid. It changed sometime in the mid to late 2000s.
Is that who it is now? Okay.
Yes, it is
Sure.
my power company.
Actually,
the-
that's helpful because I have a good contact at National Grid. My brother went to high school with them, so.
And then you mentioned now in the warmer months, you have the complaints about four-wheelers and dirt bikes, and then I suppose in the colder months, the snowmobiles.
Yeah.
Okay, I have here is just an updated list of ideas from parklands, basically an update of what I passed around to the town board 4 or 5 years ago. Supervisor Schultz and Councilman Page were in office then.
And Kevin, is that the same one that you sent me electronically?
Well, 2 weeks ago, I sent one and you responded to that in regards to the old Good Shepherd Church Performing Arts Center and the Veterans
one you
Memorial, and I just updated it with handwritten, and I did photograph and upload it to email to town board henrietta.org, all 4 pages within yesterday.
Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna get into details besides the fact that it's late. Just a couple briefly. I just feel that if we're gonna have photographs in the old Three Sisters in Chapman Corner Park in the West Hamlet of that hamlet, we should have something of the east side of town as well. And if not in the Miller Performing Arts Center, then maybe if they were to
Sure.
move Sweeney's between there and the Burger House, or to look up park if the owner was willing to sell, and that would include the dressed historic dress base to put the photographs in for the, of the East Hamlet for the, a lodge similar to the Three Sisters at Chapman Corner Park. By the way, what is the status with Chapman Corner Park anyway?
Still moving forward. I will note, I don't disagree with you, but I will note that like the work on that Three Sisters, the work on the park, that's being donated to the town.
Yes.
So if somebody were to donate the other stuff, that I absolutely agree, you know, we'll take a look at where it makes the most sense. I don't know if it's necessarily in the former Good Shepherd Church, but maybe, or, you know, maybe at least on that site or the adjacent Burger Farmhouse might make a good spot, but we'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah.
Although what I would suggest is we do the West Hamlet one first. Let's take the learnings from that and then take a look at doing it for the East Hamlet.
And I suppose the slow moving process, not complaining or anything with Chapman Corner Park, is the same time out process with tearing down the old library, building the new court on a new site.
So the status on the new court building is we're pursuing state funding to help reduce the cost to taxpayers, to town, you know, property taxpayers. So we've got the plans ready to go. We just have to, it's part of the consolidated funding application, which the deadlines are July. We've started some of it, but haven't applied yet. But again, we're going to put in a consolidated funding application to try to get, I'm going to try to shoot for $500,000 from the state to offset the cost to build it. My goal is to build the new court without taking out a bond if I can, because, you know, for every dollar I bond, it costs taxpayers about $1.50 to pay back. So if I can avoid bonding, I'm going to. Between ARPA money and excess revenues from the sales tax and mortgage tax these last few years, we may be able to do that. But that's going to be closer to when we're at the budget cycle. So the hope is to be able to put out an RFP for the construction. We'd put the RFP out in the late fall for construction to begin over winter. You know, maybe the demolition might happen in the fall. Sometime this summer, we're hopefully, actually it's after 8 o'clock, so I can check, but we're hopefully going to be in green. And we'll have I'll call it a garage sale at the old library for anybody who wants any of the old desks, or, you know, we're working to clean the old library out.
When do you think that sale would be?
I'll have to talk to our recreation staff, because I want to coordinate it. You know, it could be in conjunction with some other event that they already are going to have. So, you know, like I know there's there's some events at the senior center and some other stuff like that. So it'll probably in conjunction with another town event, but sometime this summer, you know, while we're in green, where we don't have to deal with masking or any of the other stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll just briefly, you and I had an email discussion. It kind of hit a dead end in September 2019 about a new town flag. There over your right shoulder is a picture of the original town flag. I guess once flew out here under the American flag, and there was also one where the plant, where the fake plant is, by Councilman Page. I'm just have the idea we move that plant and put a new town flag there, except it would have the H would be world blue, and the what used to be lime green would be baby blue, because basically the last administration changed the town's colors as for the sign out here, and then the new DPW trucks are world blue instead of lime green.
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, it's certainly not dead, but as you saw tonight, with essentially 9 special use permit hearings and 2 additional public hearings And with, what we know is coming next meeting, there's just so much going on right now that there's just no bandwidth to get to it. It's not that it's dead. We'll get to it at some point.
And it's certainly not life or death or urgent.
Right, yeah, but I
and-
don't disagree with you that it would be nice to get a new flag made. One of the things, I'm not sure if US flag code allows it to fly under the US flag, but we could fly the state flag under the US flag and fly
Right.
the
Yeah,
town flag on a separate one.
I could research
And or
that
the
too.
POW.
I'm an adjutant of the local Sons of the American Legion Squadron here in
Right.
town, and I know we have brochures, if I could find one from SAL about flag etiquette.
Yeah, when we were investigating, and that's why we decided to go to the 3 poles, is because there were certain flags that aren't allowed under the US flag.
Right.
So the easiest one actually to move over is the POW flag, because from a flag code standpoint, that one is actually second in line. You'll notice over at the memorial, it actually comes in priority prior to the service flags.
Right.
So the one that makes the most sense to fly under the US flag is the POW flag. In fact, anytime we're flying in a 4th flag, that's what we do, is move the POW flag over to the US flagpole. So
Yeah, I'll just mention a couple of things that I didn't include on there briefly. Number one, Adrian and I were discussing possibly some sort of maybe, I don't know, story trail or some sort of trail related to the library, and that new trail that goes from the recreation center or the new bridge over the creek to Stevens Pavilion and the playground. I know that they do now have something somewhere in a trail in Breeze Park, I don't know, and
so the best place to bring that idea would be to go to the Park and Rec Advisory Board.
Yeah.
That would be the best place to bring those ideas to.
Email Director Grunman, and then and there's that 0.4 acre wedge for sale between Highland Drive and Summer Sky Drive and the Fast Track gas station convenience store. I'd like to see the town buy it, just preserve it as a land, the same as what's the case starting in the mid 2000s, the land on Erie Station Road between the Lehigh Trail and Legacy at Erie Station.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things, we do not have any funds budgeted for the purchase acquisition of land. The challenge I see with that is, how do you make the determination as to whose land I'm going to buy, and how do I find what a fair market value is? A lot of the developers want what I'll refer to as an unrealistic amount, which is probably why a lot of those sit empty for so long. I don't disagree with you. I will say, someone asked, why don't we do buy up land to keep vacant like Pittsford does? I will point out that Pittsford added $1 million to their tax roll to do that. In Henrietta, that would represent a 25% increase in town tax.
In fact, Penfield did that, preserving the land, had a referendum that people voted for, but then they saw their Councilwoman Zink and Mike Udelson mentioned it, and then they saw their tax burdens skyrocket, and then they voted out the incumbent supervisor in the primary.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's one of those that, so one of the things we are looking at, it wouldn't necessarily be for that, because this is more for probably more for the like agricultural land and preservation. One of the things we've talked about is there is on Castle Road, there's a conservancy that was donated to the Genesee Land Trust. They currently own it. They don't really have a good means for maintaining it. They've talked about the town buying it from them. I did speak to them about that, and the deal we did have, they did I'll call it a handshake agreement on, is that if we buy it, any dollar we pay, they will only use to acquire land in Henrietta. So in that case, we essentially get double the bang for the buck. And the great thing is, it's a Genesee Land Trust who figures out which lands to spend that money. It just strikes me that that is so rife for conflict of interest to have the town boards. I don't know how these other towns do it. But boy, how do I decide, which land to buy? That's a tough call. I'm in support of it in general. Maybe my latest startup that I'm working on will take off tremendously and I'll be able to be silly rich and be able to buy lands, but who knows? It's just tough. It's really tough to look at. I'm not opposed to it, but someone's going to have to come up with a solution that A, doesn't put a big burden on taxpayers, and B, figures out how we're going to make those decisions as to what land to buy and what price to pay for them without it presenting conflicts of interest. Because I just see that a huge problem.
And lastly, you and I had talked at my interview I was interviewing for one of the boards a few years ago, commission, ferry houses in the woodlands in the southeast corner of the Veterans Park beyond the Lehigh Trail. And I personally don't have any interest in ferry houses, but I'm into arts and crafts. And one place I've done arts and crafts is creative wellness opportunities where I'm doing ferry houses, and there's unfortunately they have them in Tinker Park, but some vandals decided to trash them.
Yeah, so that location is, in fact, I don't know has that been turned over yet? Do we know that was supposed to be donated to the town as part of the Mark IV Lehigh Park apartment expansion? Yeah, so we'll have to take a look at that. That land was to be donated to the town. I don't know if it's happened yet, but once that's happened, we were going to take a look at when we're working on the Lehigh Valley Trail, which comes through there. Essentially, there'll be an immediate left through that wooded area and then back out to meet the Lehigh Valley Trail. And that's where we would, and my thought is we would reach out to area, like Girl Scout troops, Boy Scout troops, other individuals, instead of having a single artist build them all, let's have a bunch of different folks, contribute the ferry houses on
Maybe
that trail.
include the Henrietta Foundation as well, because they're kind of
Absolutely.
they're kind of sub-adopt the trail from the town who kind of adopt it from the county.
Yep. Agreed. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Anything from the town board? Additional, committee or miscellaneous reports?
I'm not even touching my phone because who knows what's going to happen to it. I have stuff on my phone, but just read the library website to see what's going on at the library. There's all kinds of awesome things, and there's some kind of a toddler dance thing coming up that's on my phone. I can't tell you the date. I'm not touching it.
Your phone's misbehaving?
I'm sorry.
Your phone's misbehaving?
It's misbehaving,
Yep.
so it went off twice. I don't think I'm not touching it till I get in the car.
Okay, anyone else?
Tomorrow afternoon, first design meeting for the Educators Grove at Hoskins Park. Excited to be part of that. And on Saturday, June 18th, the school district and the rec center are together holding the district multicultural event, which is going to feature music, dancing, and food from local cultural restaurants.
Awesome. Anything else? And can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Millie, seconded by Lisa.
Fine. Anything.
Hearing no objection, meeting adjourned. They both tried to motion at the exact same time.